everybody. Welcome to tonight's meeting. We have something that we have to address that's not on the agenda. It's a leftover item from this afternoon regarding the taxi cab fare and schedule ordinance. We all have copies of this. Do we have a motion?
Yes.
And I'm looking at you for a reason, Councilwoman.
Very enthusiastically have a motion to adopt the ordinance presented here to us to adjust the taxi cab fares, and hopefully it won't be another 18 years before they get a raise.
Do we have to read this out loud, any section of this? Okay, can we submit it to for the record then? You got it? Okay. Motion seconded by Councilmember Branch. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. The next we, okay, that goes back to Ralph now. Okay, let's see. We have to start off with the annual action plan. And Lisa has withdrawn from this item. Okay, if we have 8 minutes, I have, gonna say who has signed up. Yeah, I want people to be ready to come up. So Kevin Campbell, Kanisha Hunt, Hua Huang, Miguel Miguelis, Marcus Bandy, Sarah Quandry, and Jay Campbell. First, we'll get a presentation, but I'm going to ask everybody, once the presentation is done, to line up. And there will be 8 minutes total for speakers.
All right. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members, and City Manager. I'm John Niffenegger with Housing and Neighborhoods, and I'll be providing a brief presentation on the annual action plan for tonight's public hearing. To recap, as an entitlement community receiving federal funds, the city is required to submit an action plan each year to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The action plan follows a prescribed format and serves as the city's application for entitlement funding, provides a framework for annual strategic and budget goals, and directly aligns with the city's 5-year consolidated plan. The 2024-25 action plan is the 5th and final year implementation of our current consolidated plan, which is why much of the language may seem familiar around the goals and priorities. The consolidated plan identifies 3 goals and priorities which are reflected in the action plan. Increase the supply of affordable housing, increase services to build self-sufficiency and sustainability, and enhance the homeless to housing continuum. While HUD only requires 2 public hearings, we continue to expand the opportunities for public participation. In addition to the 2 hearings, we held 4 public meetings and offered a community-wide public survey. In addition to the city's normal communications channels, we also advertised through bus ads this year. And as always, residents can submit written comments to the department. For fiscal year 24-25, we anticipate receiving around $4.7 million from HUD through the CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership, and ESG, or Emergency Solutions Grants programs. Additionally, we've budgeted almost $26 million in local funds to leverage these resources. This slide shows the projected amounts and the activity each of the funding sources supports. For the upcoming year, we have budgeted almost $29 million to increase the supply of affordable housing, over $455,000 to address homelessness, and $260,000 to provide public services to low and moderate income residents, totaling over $30 million. With this funding, we project developing 450 affordable rental units, rehabilitating 61 homes, providing 39 households with down payment assistance, providing over 1,000 individuals with homeless services, including rapid rehousing, and providing over 2,400 residents with public services, including after-school programs and housing counseling. We issue requests for proposals each year for the CDBG-funded Community Enhancement Grant and the Emergency Solutions Grants programs. These funding recommendations are included in the action plan. The Community Enhancement Grant awards funding to nonprofits providing public services to low and moderate income residents. These agencies are recommended for funding and will be providing services such as connecting men and women experiencing homelessness to supportive services, including workforce development, helping former foster youth secure housing, and providing after-school programs for at-risk youth. And these are our second-year funding recommendations for the Emergency Solutions Grants Program, which provides funding to nonprofits serving those experiencing or at risk of homelessness. This process was done in coordination with Wake County. The majority of the funding supports rapid rehousing, an intervention designed to quickly move those experiencing homelessness into permanent housing. Following tonight's public hearing, Council will be asked to adopt the plan in May, after which it will be submitted to HUD. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, before we begin the hearing, do we have any questions of staff? Councilmember Patton?
So your submission comes in mid-May after we adopt it, so you're able to use feedback that you got, that we get tonight from the public hearing to make modifications? Cool.
Correct.
And then just wanted to kind of like uplift a component you said that I'm not sure everyone in the public knows, but the consolidated plan is the 5-year plan. So each of the single-year plans we submit follows in the themes of those, and we're in the last year. So if people are feeling like the themes are not aligned with what they want to give feedback on, do you have do you have a little preview of what the consolidated plan update will look like?
Yes, so we'll be starting the community engagement process for the upcoming consolidated plan later this summer, early this fall. And like you mentioned, it will be an opportunity to hear from the community on what the goals and priorities should be for the upcoming 5 years.
Cool.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing then. We have 7 people signed up to speak. As I noted, if you will come up. Also going to remind you that this is 8 minutes, so please be considerate of others who will be speaking. If you take a little over a minute apiece, that will be perfect. Please come up and give your name.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. I'm Kevin Campbell. I'm serving as Executive Director of the Raleigh Area Land Trust. It's nice to come before you and talk about what I think is an excellent plan. I think, as John mentioned, there's definitely a continuum of housing need, from homelessness to subsidized home ownership that the plan, I think, addresses well. It covers a lot of bases. And I want to thank you all, too, for the work that you've done that allows for more dense land use. And as we see that median rent rates are starting to come down, that's nice to see. I did want to say in the plan, my only comment really is that the plan is heavily weighted toward affordable rental housing. And I do want to be on record that I support that. But I would like to advocate here for as many dollars as can be advocated toward affordable home ownership. As affordable home ownership is housing plus equity, housing plus generational legacy that people can leave to their families. So I'll just leave it with that. We'd just like to see more allocation toward home ownership. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, and welcome in your new role.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Good
you
to be
being
back.
here. Thank you. All right, next is Kenesha.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. Again, I am in agreement with the affordable homes, but I do have concerns about the affordable properties. So I've been living in Raleigh for 31 years, born and raised. I'm also a licensed real estate agent, so I've seen a lot of different issues with affordable properties. One being, although you may meet the requirements of not making over the annual median income, the AMI, you still have to qualify to make 3 times the monthly rent. With that being said, a single person who may make $20 an hour working 40 hours a week, they are bringing home $3,200 a month. So if a single person is looking for a 1-bedroom property, let's say starting at $1,200 a month, they won't qualify because 3 times is $3,600. They only bring home $3,200. So I feel like a good solution will be to build I'm sorry, I'm nervous, shaking. But I feel like a great solution would be focused on income-based properties, because although we have a working community, our working community are still not able to afford 3 times the monthly rent. So if we can focus more on building income-based properties, and again, I'm agreeing with the maybe doing rent-to-own properties for families or single persons who may want to go into home ownership, things like that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Nothing to be nervous about. You did great. Thank you. Hua Huang?
Hi, I am here speaking from the Wake County Housing Justice Coalition has reviewed the report, and we have a number of things we want to bring up as part of our concern. Page 20, your goal stated increase and preserve the supply of affordable housing. There's actually a lack of clarification, because how many do you intend to preserve, how many you intend to build, and how many will be torn down in the meantime? I think lumping increase and preserve affordable housing in the same category is not doing justice as to actually specifying how much is actually being preserved. The other point, we have many points, but I'll just bring out another one here. Your data on public housing claims that Raleigh Housing Authority is providing community engagement, but we know that the residents at Heritage Park are not able to fully utilize their own community center freely even after the COVID lockdown. And also mentioned on page 37 on incentive public housing programs to ready family for home ownership. We'd like to know how many people are benefited from that program. Because putting up a flyer or putting it in the website, but if no one sees it, how are you working toward making sure that people are actively being plugged into the program? We'd like to see the number for that one. You aren't getting paid to make a flyer, you're getting paid to provide sustainable help. And let's see what else is going on. The $11.8 million from affordable housing bond and $8.1 million from general fund, the city claimed to meet their cited goal should go to a protected class by 100%. And just to note, income is not a protected class. People who suffer disability, people who are being racially discriminated, they are the one who is under protected class, not income. So keep that in mind. And also, we need more accountability toward how the fund distribution is going to organizations like CASA and DHIC. Complete RFP contracts should be transparent to the public. So those are some of the main points. I think there may need to be added accountability. We don't want the same thing happen again with what happened with CASA last year. That's just one of the examples.
Miguel? And please refrain from applaud, jeering, anything in between. We're here to listen to people. Thank you. That's part of the rules of decorum.
Hello, everybody. I'm Miguel. I work at Endless Grind Skate Shop. Unfortunately, I'm not here about the affordable housing, but I'm here about maybe starting a skate park. So recently,
Excuse me 1 second. Could we stop the timer? Karen, I'm going to need some guidance here. This is a public hearing on the Affordable Housing Grant. He's going to talk about a skate park. That does not fall,
Right, that doesn't fall within the subjects for this public hearing, so he would probably need to come back to public comment, or if there's a public hearing at some other time to speak on that issue.
okay. We're going to have to ask you to come back to public comment.
Of course, of
This
course.
is for this affordable housing plan.
Okay, yep, my apologies.
Okay, thank
Our
you.
public comment is next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
Yeah.
You can sign
Yes.
up online.
Yeah.
You can sign up on the same page that you went to sign up for this. Okay, thank you. Marcus Bandy, and I'm just going to remind everybody, could you put that back at 3 minutes? Okay, we have Marcus Bandy, Sarah Quandry, and Jay Campbell still signed up to speak. Any of you here? Okay. Then I am going to close the hearing. And then, is this coming back to us at a later date for, this is a question for staff. As I recall, this comes back to us at a later date. We have to hold the hearing first.
Correct. Council will be asked to adopt the plan likely in mid-May.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, the next item on our agenda is the municipal election changes. The first part is on council terms and implementation of a nonpartisan primary and election. We have 8 people signed up in support, 6 in opposition. I'm going to remind everybody the same thing. All of you, try to leave time for everybody. We're going to hear from our team first, but your names will be up there. I would prefer everybody kind of line up so we're ready and we can go through the list. But if you'll start us off.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Janie Richardson, City Attorney's Office. Tonight, we have 2 public hearings on the 2 resolutions of intent that you all adopted at your last meeting. The first resolution is to consider changing terms from 2 years to 4-year terms, staggering those terms with the group staggered as shown on the slide, and changing to the nonpartisan primary and election method in comparison to the nonpartisan plurality that is currently in place. The other resolution is for the addition of 3 district council members, and both resolutions consider implementation in 2026. Tonight, if you all would like to proceed with the charter amendments following the public hearing, staff will just need direction on a few things I wanted to note for your consideration while you're listening to the comments tonight. We'll need direction on whether or not you want the ordinance to be effective with a referendum election or without. And then we'll also need direction on how you want the terms staggered. So who will receive 2-year terms versus 4-year terms. And at the last meeting or the meeting before that, I had mentioned if there couldn't be unanimous consent, that the best option would be for a coin flip. But I did want to mention, as it relates to the at-large seats, there is the option that the highest vote getter for that seat could have the 4-year term versus the 2-year term. So you don't technically have to do the coin flip for that one if that's the method you'd prefer to take with the at-large seats. You've all seen this slide numerous times now, but just as a reminder, it takes 3 meetings to amend the charter in this way, and we are at the 2nd meeting. That's the public hearing tonight, and the 3rd meeting where you would adopt the ordinance and/or call for the referendum election on it. It has to be within 60 days of tonight's hearing. You could do that as early as the next meeting on April 16th, or you could do it as late as May 21st. Because the 60 days will run out on June 1st, and May 21st is that last meeting before that time frame ends. And with that, I'm here happy to answer any questions before the public hearing starts, and of course, I'll be around afterwards if there's any further questions.
Okay, Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, thanks for that information. I know there's a few folks to speak here tonight on this topic, and I appreciate your slide. If you could go back where it shows that there's 3 meetings that we're having on this particular topic. So we're in that second meeting, and I just want to emphasize this is the opportunity for a public hearing. So this is when we're hearing from our residents. But we are not making any kind of ultimate decision until our third meeting. My recommendation would be that that takes place as late as possible in the cycle, which would be May 21st, so that if we would like to hold any additional public engagement, we would have time to. I'd like to see kind of where the conversation goes tonight with a public hearing to get a sense of the public and where they are on these topics. But if we were to have our final third meeting on May 21st, perhaps we would have time on the 5th Tuesday of the month, April 30th this month, or some other time for additional public engagement. I think that's really all I have at the moment, but I do want to emphasize again that these decisions, they would not go into effect until 2026. And I'm just excited that people are here to talk through these issues. I think this is still very much an open conversation, and it's important for the public to weigh in about any election changes.
Councilmember Patton, and then Councilmember Black.
Hi. I know you've given us this presentation 100 times, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry to still be asking clarifying questions, but I thought you said verbally that tonight we have to direct you referendum or no. But on your slide, it seems like we don't have to decide that until next time.
So I'll need to know how to draft the ordinance for you all to consider at that third meeting. So you don't have to technically vote on it until the third meeting, but we'll need direction on how you want.
I see. Okay.
We can certainly draft alternative ones if it's not decided tonight.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Black.
I mirror Councilmember Harrison's perspective on specifically the public engagement aspect of this 3-meeting public hearing process around the expansion of the seats and all of the election changes. I have gotten numerous comments just over the weekend, during a holiday weekend, mind you, about like people wanting to provide input and not having signed up for the public hearing process yet. So I do think we should have more opportunity over these next 60 days of public engagement and allowing for more space for a public hearing, or if not public hearing, then public engagement, because I've had so many comments just over the weekend of people not really realizing where we were at with this process.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll start on the municipal election changes, council terms, and implementation of a nonpartisan primary election. Please remember 8 minutes per side. We will start with Tim Niles.
Can we get a little more time? I'm just thinking for the number of people.
We'll wait.
And see where they are at. Okay.
Tim Niles. I support placing a referendum on the ballot for the question of 4-year staggered terms with a primary and let the voters decide. Each time you've asked the public, the majority has been opposed. The only reasonable way to move forward is with a ballot referendum. At each public discussion, a majority of you have reassured the voters that you will use a ballot referendum. As recently as January 16th, Mayor Pro Tem Melton said, quote, "I at least hear consensus on doing a ballot referendum for 2024 for the 4-year staggered. I would like to signal that we are ready to move forward with a ballot referendum to be on the 24 November ballot," end quote. Turning your back on those assurances now would send a message to the voters that you still don't care about community engagement. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa Huguet. Did Lisa come in?
She's not able to attend. She sent us her comments in email.
Okay. Jeff Durkin. If we could have Lenny Friedman also come up, be ready to speak.
Hi, good evening. I'll be very brief. I support the referendum, and I would be voting for the referendum. I support 4-year staggered terms. I think that our city faces incredibly complicated problems, and I think that we need counselors who have the time and space to solve those and follow through on them. I don't think the public really wins by having the possibility of immense turnover every 2 years, and I think our counselors need, I think they need that time and that scope to be able to follow through on the issues and not always be in a reelection every year. So, thank you.
Did you, excuse me, Jeff, did you say you supported a referendum, or does it matter?
So there's an option where the council can just make the decision, or they can put it on the ballot. I think that's what she's looking for clarification on.
I guess I would prefer to just go ahead and do it.
Okay, thank you. Next is Lenny Friedman.
Hello, Lenny Friedman, Raleigh resident since 2004. I want to thank the City Council. I do support the 4-year terms and the non-partisan primaries. Also want to thank the Raleigh City Council for their stated support of ranked choice voting at several recent council meetings. The one thing that does give me pause about the nonpartisan primaries is that there is a very high likelihood that the top 2 candidates to move to the general are voted with a small plurality of votes. In the NCAA tournament, we hope NC State wins by 1 point over Purdue, but for electing our city council, we don't want just the highest vote getter to advance. Ranked choice voting can help solve this. And therefore, I'm here asking the City Council to support the Wake County Board of Elections to do an assessment and a roadmap for implementing ranked choice voting as a long-term goal. And on top of that, if need be, requesting the North Carolina General Assembly do an assessment for ranked choice voting. This is specifically towards Wake County. Again, I want NC State to win by 1 point. For City Council members, thank you.
Eric?
Thank you. I don't know, can I sit here? Is it okay? Good evening, my name is Eric Braun, 3316 Rock Creek Drive, 27609. As many of you know, I chaired the council-appointed group, study group tasked with studying and making recommendations on council compensation, size, and terms. The study group had 10 residents. It was quite diverse in terms of race, gender, and geography. After meeting approximately 15 times and conducting significant research, the study group unanimously approved all its recommendations presented in the final report that we presented to you on September 7th, 2021. To date, council has adopted 2 of those recommendations. Specifically, we recommended moving to 4-year staggered terms. The primary rationale for this recommendation is captured in this quote from the final report. While longer terms will help City Council maintain heightened focus on strategic initiatives, staggering is important because it preserves the ability of voters to signal dissatisfaction and/or the need for course corrections every 2 years. Staggering also eliminates the possibility of an entire council being defeated in a single election. Ultimately, 4-year staggered terms establish political stability that is more conducive to policy development and effective implementation. I do want to say, too, that based on some comments in prior meetings, it was fairly evident to me that some of you counselors hadn't read the final report. I would recommend that you do read it. We spent a lot of time on it. I looked at the data recently. It's still valid. It hasn't changed in terms of council makeup for the state, cities in the state as far and nationally. And so I hope you will do that. And I would recommend adopting the changes by ordinance rather than referendum. Thank you. Appreciate it. And I'll answer any questions you have about the report as well.
Thank you. Next is Stephen Jessup.
Good evening. Make this very simple. I'm in favor of 4-year terms. Why? Because Raleigh's a very complicated place, and it's a growing place. And when we have new council members come on board, I'm going to guess it takes 9 months, a year, 2 years to really understand how this city functions, how things happen, how the government works. This is not like becoming a den leader for a Cub Scout or a Girl Scout troop. This is a little more complicated than that. So I am very much in favor of the 4-year staggered terms, number one. Number two, if you want to vote it on yourselves or you want to put it on the ballot, I'm mixing or mox with that. You all can make that decision. You're adults. More importantly, the amount you're being paid is wholly insufficient. I have a feeling you're doing more than 8 or 10 hours a week. You're probably doing 20 to 40 or 50. For a rather paltry sum, you can make more than what you're making at council by working at McDonald's for $15 an hour. So let's double your pay at least, please, if you want to add a supplement. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Leon Cook?
Leon Cook. This is, to me, was a two-part question. I do agree to change the city's election method to nonpartisan with a primary. Look at what resulted last election with plurality. I don't agree with 4-year terms. Why not hold councilors accountable for every 2 years? It works for the most part in the Federal House of Representatives. Why can't it work here in the city? Assuming that the districts are not gerrymandered, of course. The residents of Raleigh should determine this question. Thank you.
Thank you. And Beth Ballard? Is Beth here? Okay. I will, let's go to 8 minutes, please. And please see who's here. Chris Crew, Josh Bradley, Octavia Rainey, Rob Steele, Hua Huang, and Helen Tart. Please line up to speak.
Can I volunteer to go at the end, so if there are people that are more deserving can talk in front of them? Do we have to go in this order?
You can go last if that's your wish. Thank you. Okay, Chris?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I identified as opposed because I think a change of this nature requires an opportunity for considerable public input and most likely a public referendum. Three major questions come to mind to me. First of all, does this give an advantage to a candidate running in sync with the mayor's race because of additional publicity and likely higher turnout? So is it going to be a fair election? Second question, what rationale will you have to explain which district councilors get 2 extra years the first shot? There needs to be some discussion of that, public discussion, robust input. And also on that same note, how will the 2 new districts be identified? So, the public deserves to know these things. Finally, considerable public input needs to be sought out to make a wise and fair decision, which needs to be presented for public referendum. Don't do this behind closed doors like you did in 2021. That left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. That was not good governance. Good governance is by the consent of the governed. Thank you.
Thank you. Octavia?
Good evening. I have to say first and foremost, I'm a black woman. As you know, black people are always excluded from the ballot box. So every right we have to vote, we need to vote. I do support putting this out as a referendum. It's the power of the vote. And we all know black people are left behind and we're still left out of that vote. So I support a referendum. Let's put it to the people. Let the black people come out and vote. Please let this go to a referendum.
Rob Steele?
Good evening. Robert Steele. I'm opposed to this in 2 parts. One, I'm opposed to this being done behind closed doors. If you're going to do this, it needs to be a referendum. 2 times you've done surveys and 2 times the survey respondents have said no. If you do this behind closed doors, it's going to be worse than what happened in 2021. Second part of this I'm opposed to personally is the 4-year terms themselves. The reason for that is if you're doing a good job, re-election should be easy. But if you're not, we, the voters, should be able to get rid of you. And we should be able to do that frequently and easily. Thank you.
Hua Huang.
So Rob still before me already iterated some points that I feel were important. One of them being that the four-year term, if the sitting council turns out to be doing a bad job, yeah, people should have the right and ability to easily recall the candidate, the person who's sitting right now, if they're doing a bad job. Second, as far as the concern with public input, I'm going to read to you the letter that's from our Raleigh coalition that's sent from Elder Ungar's at Laughing House. And it says that the coalition discussed rather that there should be a citywide referendum vote by all voters as opposed to just a council member voting on this proposed change. And the coalition was unanimous in the city should extend the dates and time for more citizens to participate in future public hearing on this matter and postpone any decision until there's a greater community discussion and input. So just want to put that out there. And I believe that is, yeah. We need everyone's voice on this matter, so hopefully you will, at the very least, put this on a referendum. Thank you.
Helen.
I wish you guys hadn't changed it to begin with. It was fine, but since you did, and I think that it's more important for us to have a primary than 2-year terms. I think that that's the most important thing, as opposed to having somebody who didn't get 50% of the vote winning the election. And apparently the only way we can do that is if you guys get 4-year terms also. So I am in favor, I guess, of 4-year terms as long as we get the primary and as long as you put it on the ballot. Because having the plurality is so dangerous when anybody, including me, I ran for city council. You know, anybody can run for city council and you can have 10 people running for one seat. It's crazy to have plurality. So we need to have a primary and we need to put it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh?
Joshua Bradley, 1324 Spring Lawn Court. Everybody, the opposition and support of these was kind of weird because it's kind of nebulous, right? Like, there's good things and bad things about both. The first thing I want to talk about is the nonpartisan primary. It sounds really good, but it really puts an advantage to people that are well connected with very, very wealthy people. No diss on wealthy people, they tend not to vote with working class. So there's that, and it doubles the amount of money that people can raise between elections. What would work really good is if you did a primary election but made it publicly funded, vis-a-vis you send out a list of all the candidates with where they stand and not allow campaigning at all. Plurality is dangerous. But it worked before with municipal elections. Turnout was low, but the city didn't go out of its way to advertise municipal elections. And municipal elections are the most important elections that you can face when it comes to day-to-day living. And I know that this council has not wowed the majority of people in this city with their ability to make sure everybody's taken care of and, you know, aren't living in the woods and stuff. But I think if we could get it back to odd years and then advertise it more, and then hopefully that, you know, we can count on the people of Raleigh to come out if they're actually invested in what's going on and let them know what's going on. I think that it is very, very important that whatever you do, you put it up on as a referendum, because if it won't stand public scrutiny, and it's not very democratic, then why are we having elections anyway if we're going to run the city as an authoritarian entity? So whatever you do, please put it on the ballot referendum. And when it comes down to it, nonpartisan primary is going to benefit people that are have a lot of deep pockets with your developer friends. So because they're going to be able to donate twice as much, and people that are representing the working class who don't have the ties to the people that are exploiting them are going to be set at a disadvantage. So the way we were doing it before was fine. Election runoff. We can move it back. There's no pandemic on. We can put it out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close this part of the hearing, and now we'll go to municipal election changes. And this is the number of council members, increasing that from 8 to 11. Tim, you're up again. I'll open the hearing. Remember, please, we have 7 people, 8 minutes per side.
I support adding 3 districts by charter amendment. There's no need for a ballot referendum. Each time you've surveyed the residents, they have favored adding districts over adding at-large seats. With Raleigh's population, each of the districts represents 90,000 residents. Adding 3 seats lowers that to 57,000. More and smaller districts provide the opportunity for more diversity on council by making campaigns less expensive. This allows councilors to more easily engage and maintain relationships with a smaller constituent base. Adding at-large seats provides none of these benefits. At-large campaigns are expensive. Adding at-large seats eliminates the benefit of separating the at-large seats into different cycles with a move to 4-year staggered terms. You eliminate the benefit of moving from plurality to majority elections if you add at-large seats. With 2 at-large seats and a mayor, you have 27% of the council as citywide representatives. That's enough. The previous council had 4 members who lived in District C. The mayor, both at-large reps, and the district councilor, fully half of the council. Adding at-large seats simply increases the chance of more over-representation by a single district. Thank you.
Do you want to go last, Josh? All right, Shane Collins. If people could start lining up, you see who's next. Octavia, Leon Cook, Helen Tart, and James Shonassi.
Hello, Council and Mayor.
What
Shane
music
Collins.
do you have for us tonight?
No More Kings, Schoolhouse Rock. I'm in favor of the district expansion for the councilors, not so much the at-large. So let's talk about 3 new districts. We want to elect new district councilors, no more at-large kings. District councilors will listen to the people, no more at-large kings. The CACs and districts want to run things our way, no more at-large kings. Over the horizon, what can it be? Looks like district councilors with councilors who care. Thank you, council, and thank you for looking ahead to expand council seats to represent the districts.
Octavia Rainey, I truly support district seats because district seats are so important. In Southeast Raleigh, when you hit Barwell Road and you go back, that district needs representation. We advocated for that as a CAC, but somehow District C was taken out and Midtown was put in. Yes, it was when I was on the RCAC long time ago. So this isn't no short talk. It is for real. We advocated for more districts because we knew that the districts were big back then. So this is no real secret. But I do support district seats. It's so important. And it is very important when you look at the Barwell Road section going back in the Barwell Road, that CAC is so big, it need to be split up. So when we look at splitting up the districts, we have to make sure that we are transparent, because you're talking about Southeast Raleigh and what this would mean to Southeast Raleigh. It will mean a lot. So I support more districts, because I think that it'll better help with the growth, better help you understand what the citizens are talking about when they come before you. We are so big now, just as districts. And to be honest, I ran for District C back in 1999. So I know in my platform, I advocated for smaller districts. So I know the districts are just too big. They are too big. And when they get that big, they get complicated. So it's hard when you approach your city council, because it's just so big. They're just too big. And we need smaller districts so we can advocate in those districts. So if we can advocate, it is better for the city of Raleigh as a whole. And it is better because you have smaller ones, so you can communicate and we can talk to you. Right now, it's so big, we really can't talk to you. Jane, I love you, girl. But to be honest, I was the chair of North Central CAC. We split District C with District D. So I would have meetings in District D because it was still North Central CAC. So even I learned from that, it's just too big. So I would really advocate, and I hope you would do too, please, let's split these districts up. Let's be fair about them now, but let's split them up so all of y'all can better serve the citizens of Raleigh.
Leon?
Leon Cook. I agree with much of the favorable comments to add additional districts. Actually, I'm more in favor of having 5 new districts by eliminating the current at-large positions. In 1794, the North Carolina General Assembly established a board of 7 appointed commissioners and a mayor. It wasn't until 1803 that city commissioners began to be elected at large. At-large was originally created to marginalize certain residents of Raleigh. Why continue it? By adding 5 new districts, councilors will represent approximately 48,000 residents, which will allow them to better engage with their constituents. The fallacy that at-large members are the only ones who will serve to represent the whole city is not true. All councilors vote on issues that impact the entire city, not just their district. All can provide perspectives based on their individual expertise. It also eliminates the overrepresentation of councilors inside the Beltline as it is today. Thank you.
Helen? And then James? We have 1 minute and 23 seconds left on the timer, so.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm half blind. I can't read up there. I am in favor of 3 new districts. You should do it. You should do it now. Go ahead if you have to and hire somebody to draw them. But go ahead and do it. You don't have to put it on the ballot. I think the sooner you do it, the better. Thank you.
Hello, City Council. I'm here to express that I support the resolution, but I have some stipulations that I think you might want to consider. 1, to keep 2 at-large councilors, 8 district councilors, and designating the mayor as a non-voting member, except in tiebreakers. This gives the mayor a more leadership and moderator role to moderate between other executives in the city government, like the city manager, the chief of police, the chief of fire, and so forth. Maintaining 2 at-large council members ensures that citywide issues and interests are carefully weighted along with district-specific concerns. And I'll just keep it short and say that I think you should look at these stipulations, and if you have any more questions afterwards, I'd be more than happy to answer any of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh, you got a whole 17 seconds there.
Can I get 3 more? Make it an even 20.
Well, okay.
Comrades, I support eliminating the at-large districts and doing it all district. As somebody that's running for at-large, I get it, I hear it, but it needs to be done. They're more representative. It's just weird to me that we had 4 people living in District C, and District C has been unrepresented, the people there, by this council. Over.
Okay, next, we've got the 8 minutes up. We have 3 people signed up, Jeff Durkin, Eric Braun, and Hua Huang.
I don't support an expansion to 11 councilors for a couple reasons. One, if you think about our current balance, 5 of the 8 members up here are district councilors. This resolution would move us to 8 out of 11, which would overwhelm the at-large seats. I don't think this is going to give us better government. To be sure, we need district councilors. We need people who can ensure that all corners of our city have representation and have focus, and that everybody has that line to city council. But our city is more than just the sum of its parts. Raleigh is not just a collection of neighborhoods. Decisions you make about housing on one side of town affect housing prices on the other. The success of transit in one area will affect the prospects for federal funding in the others. To solve these problems, we need a balance of councilors who focus on a single district and councilors who answer to the whole city. And I think that balance is just better with 5 to 8. I also think that a council of 11 people is just too large, no matter how the councilors are selected. I think it's going to be really hard to measure consensus amongst yourselves and to make decisions and build the consensus that our city needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Could we have the microphone for Eric?
Good evening again. Eric Braun. Again, I was chair of the study group, and I'm just going to review some of the findings we had. And if you look at the report, there's an extensive set of appendix that has our data in it that we reviewed. It has all the minutes of all our meetings, and all our meetings are on video, so they're available to watch as well. The research on council size in North Carolina showed that the 15 largest peer cities had an average of 7.8 council seats. Based on the research conducted by the study group and my personal experience, I oppose adding 3 additional district seats. Part of the rationale for recommending the addition of a single district seat was to maintain a healthy balance of at-large councilors with the mayor and district councilors. Councilors elected at large are more likely to make more strategic approach to decision-making because they are accountable to the entire city. District councilors, on the other hand, are likely to make decisions based on localized impacts to district constituents. Adding 3 districts will upset this healthy tension between local interests and strategic policy development and implementation. In other words, adding 3 district seats will create geographic partisanship that will make it harder to enact policies that treat Raleigh as an integrated social and economic unit. It's worth noting that in 1998, Durham residents voted to reduce the size of its council to 6 councilors and a mayor from what they had was 12 councilors and a mayor. The voters approved having 3 at-large councilors and 3 district councilors. Durham's approach strikes a better balance between local interests and citywide interests. I would also say in terms of district size, that's a dissipating benefit. The city's going to grow, and so just adding 3 districts may reduce the size temporarily, but over time, that's the maximum size that the state law allows a council to be. And so they're diminishing returns over time as the city grows. Those districts are going to continue to grow. And also, I would just point out there are additional recommendations on voter outreach and engagement that the study group made that haven't been discussed by council. And I would encourage you all to maybe put those as part of your future work plans. It was about voter outreach and engagement approaches the city could take. So again, I appreciate your time and opportunity to speak tonight, and I hope you'll consider adding one district. Thank you.
That was the recommendation of the task force, correct?
Correct.
Hua Huang?
Hi, good evening. I am here to let you know, let it be on the record, that I am actually in favor of having more district council. However, I'm speaking in opposition because we still do not have a democratic process, and until that does happen, there's no guarantee. And also, I want to take this opportunity to remind council members, 2 letters that were sent in 2022, I believe, from NCAAT, NC Counts, El Pueblo, and the Southern Coalition for Social Justice regarding how the city drew their district line the last time you guys have a discussion about this. I think either way, if you're going to ask 3 seats, I mean, it would be great if you have more districts, but this is my opportunity to tell you to please do it in a way that does take into accountability of being equitable in the way you draw your district line. I'm more than happy to send to all of you again the 2 letters I just mentioned, but I'll just point out some things that were stated by the SCSJ that were concerning, but I would like for you to keep that in mind. It says that at the time the city attorney was making an error that misled the public on what it means when they claim that Raleigh is not covered by Section 2 of Voters' Rights Act, that voters should not be misled about fundamental right to vote. And I think that the fact that the city was willing to push for this idea that Raleigh is not covered by the Voters' Rights Act is kind of egregious. It's like, why would you not want to be covered by Voters' Rights Act? Second, I remember in 2022, there were people from the Latino community that came here to speak and call for the city not to sever their community with the district line, and the city did anyway. I want to bring this out here to remind people that has happened. It happened. And the SCSJ also pointed that out too, with regard to how even the slightest change in the district line could mean huge impact in the way the community is being shaped, the voting power of the Black and Brown community. These are things that you keep in mind, especially with how the Black and Brown community's votes are consistently, historically being diluted with the way the district line is being drawn, whether that's on a state level or here in the city. So again, I just want to bring your point here to please, yes, having more district, but when the time comes to redraw a district line, do it in a way that actually preserve or even strengthen the voting power of the Black and Brown community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I am also going to close this part of the hearing. So I guess what we were told at the beginning is we have to give some feedback to staff on doing this with or without a referendum election, and then who goes where.
Correct, unless you're going to continue to have engagement about this to discuss it.
So what I was going to recommend you do is come up with several options. So we're prepared, and we can move forward accordingly. If you have, I think the first one's pretty simple. With a referendum or without a referendum.
Correct.
So I'd ask that you do both. I'd like some feedback on the districts and at large and who goes where from other council members. And my other question is that too soon to even be determined. Councilmember Harrison, and Mayor Pro Tem, and then Councilmember Branch.
Yeah, I just want to put it out there again that I think it would be beneficial to have one more public engagement opportunity that is, run by the city. So again, that could be perhaps the 5th Tuesday of April or a different time. But I'm curious, if we hear feedback at that time, can we make any changes after then about what we are considering? Because like right now, we're providing some input to y'all. Could we also do that after that session?
So any ordinance would have to be based on what's contained in the resolution, or in the resolutions. So right now, the resolution, the first one is for 4-year staggered terms and with the nonpartisan primary and election. And so that concept has to stay in anything further unless we want to start the process over again with a new resolution. And the second resolution is for the addition of 3 district council members, and that's district council members and 3 of them, and those 2 things cannot be changed unless we start again with a new resolution.
Okay, so if we did have another public engagement session, those would really be the 2 items. There's not a change. But if for any reason we didn't want to move forward, we would at least have more information about, where folks are coming from. And I'll leave it at that. I don't know what people think about what kind of engagement session that could be or when would be helpful.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I have a couple thoughts. I'm all for doing more engagement, but I feel like, we noticed this as a public hearing as required, and I feel like everyone who came spoke, no one got cut off. And so I'm not sure what another engagement session looks like. I think what we need to do is have more discussion, and I don't think now is the right space for it. I think it should be on another meeting agenda because we have all these other public hearings this evening that we need to address. And certainly if we set it on another council agenda for discussion, folks could register for public comment, I think, and talk because there's not a hearing anymore. Is that right? One thing I'm interested in is, since we announced we were doing this public hearing, we've all received a lot of emails. I'm sure I've been stopped and asked about it at community events, and we've heard the comments tonight, and I would like to have some flexibility based on the comments tonight on what these ordinances look like. I think the first one's pretty easy. It's going to be 4-year staggered terms with a nonpartisan primary, but it's either going to be ordinance or a ballot referendum. That one's easy. The council size, since we announced this, we've gotten a lot of feedback about it should be 1 district council member, it should be 3 district council members. I don't think anyone's been saying 2. So I think the options we have are 1 or 3. But it seems like now if we, the only thing we can continue with is the 3 council members based on this resolution that was posted. But if at another meeting we have more discussion, we decided we want to do 1, then we'd have to do another public hearing on 1. And so I'm just trying to figure out the time frame. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not sure that scheduling some citywide listening session on this is the best use of our time. I think we need to have more discussion, fine-tune what these resolutions are, have another public hearing. We have to have another public hearing. And so that's sort of where I would be at on this. I do think having the city attorney's office ready with multiple options would be helpful. And there was one other thing I was going to say, but now I forgot. I had it queued up before Councilmember Harrison's comments. That's okay. It'll come back to me, I'm sure.
I just want to comment and get you, Councilor Branch, next. We've been working on this for 4 years, and there has been numerous engagement. The group that Eric headed up, I know it was during COVID, but there were a number of meetings that were held. We also had meetings with the former council where this had been discussed in great detail. So this isn't something new. It's something that's been ongoing for 4 years from engagement standpoint. And it sounds like you remembered what you wanted to say. Okay.
Yes, I was going to say, if any of these issues end up on the ballot, then that's going to be how we get the most public feedback on that issue. And then the second part I had was on the how do we determine the staggered. I think it's fine if we pull from a hat unless we can get to consensus on that. That seems to be the most fair way to do it. If that's not how folks want to do it, I think the suggestion on the at large, sort of staggering on the votes would be fine, but that would be starting in 26. So would you say that this election, I will need to figure out the specifics. I think my preference is to pull out of a hat. I think that cuts out any bad feelings. It cuts out any bias. It's just, it is what it is. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But again, I do think we need to have more discussion on this.
One note about the at-large. So if you don't choose to do the highest vote getter gets the 4 years, we'll have to separate the at-large seats for the ballot. So just.
Right. So we'll need to figure out that. But all these are starting in 26.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, come to you in a minute.
So the thing I want to mention, it goes back to the if it's on the ballot in 24, and the question is about districts on the ballot, how do we determine what districts we're telling the community to select from if we don't know if the community approves 3? Like if the ballot says, do you want 3 council members added to the council? So the other question is, do you want 4 years or staggered? And if it's staggered, this is who would be in group 1 and group 2. Am I missing something?
So it will be a little complicated. If you add 3 district council members or choose to go that way, there will be likely 2 ordinances that you'll adopt. One will be if the 4-year terms pass, and one will be if it fails. We can do it.
Okay.
It's a little complicated, but we can figure it out. You would just need to tell us whether or not you want 2 or 1 of the new district seats to be 2-year versus 4-year terms. We
Okay.
just need to know, like, in terms of years, how those are going to be split out.
Okay, because as I was sitting here, I was trying to figure out how do we inform the voters and they know what they're voting for in selecting, the staggered part. And the other piece is, I did a tally of those who said referendum in council tonight. I mean, it's non-scientific. But it was like 7-2 of those who actually openly said, I would rather for it to be on the ballot, or if I'd rather for the council to decide as far as 4 years and staggered. We have been talking about this for 4 years, but this conversation's probably been going on for almost 8. So I think we are at a point now, we're at a crossroads where we need to make a decision within, I say, the next 60 days. As council members, we all have forums, we all have our meetings. There's a way to receive feedback there. But I think in May, we need to be ready to tell the residents if this is on the ballot or not and what's on the ballot.
Well, and there's 2 items, so we have to be
Correct.
very clear. One thing could be on the ballot. That is the 4-year terms and the primary, nonpartisan primary. So, we're looking at 2 different issues, and, we're looking at 2 different issues. So let me get this back on track here. It was Councilmember Patton, then Harrison, and now Ford.
Yeah, I was just gonna offer that, like, logistically, if there is a desire to keep the conversation open with the public, because, it's the tale as old as time, right? Like, the people who sit at the table feel like a conversation has been going on for a long time, but someone out in the general public, like, plugs into the stream at the time when they do, right? And so I think one option we have is to hold this hearing open. We would have public hearing opportunities on April 16th, May 7th, and then May 21st. May 21st is obviously our deadline, so that's probably not a good day to have additional input, but that would leave us 2 more opportunities if we hold this public hearing open like we would a rezoning case. People could continue to share feedback before the final vote. So just want to throw that out there.
Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, I just wanted to put out the idea, if we have an additional public engagement session, that perhaps it's not here with this kind of, for or against, you get a minute to talk structure, but perhaps we do it in one of our parks, community centers, round tables, conversations, people moving around, and just being able to really talk through variety of issues around local elections. I think it's so important that everyone votes this November at every level. And when I think about the amount of education that that takes to be aware of what's going on, changes to voter rights, what IDs you have to have. I mean, I could imagine that we could bring in partners too to really have a larger conversation around voting. Maybe that's too big, but I think the more conversation we have, the better. So I'm gonna keep pushing that.
Councilmember Fort.
Well, I'm probably a little bit different. I think we've talked about this a lot, and I'm kind of ready to give you where I am. I think everybody else is kind of like all, which I get it, which is fine. To me, I think we've heard like pretty clearly from the public that they want this to be a referendum that appears on the ballot. I think there's consensus there. I don't know that we'd have to have additional public hearings to get more consensus on something that there's already a consensus on. So to me, being able to move that forward would be the first step. Secondly, I am in favor of 3 district seats. I have the unique perspective of having served as a district rep and then serving at large. Certainly think with the size of the city, I mean, we haven't changed the council size since the 70s. It's 2024. Definitely think we need to expand to 3. Eric, appreciate all the work that the committee did, but with the number of people coming into the city and the size of the city expanding, definitely think we should do 3 district seats. I know we've got deadlines that we've got to meet to get this stuff on the ballot. And so to me, kind of moving the train down the tracks to get things finalized so we can make sure we get it to the Board of Elections so it's timely to show up on the ballot, to me, would be the way that I would suggest we go, but that's just my feedback.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I think there's actually a way to merge what Councilmember Harrison said and what Councilmember Fort said, because if we do move forward with the ballot initiative on the 4-year staggered terms, we could then ask, as part of the work we've already authorized for voter education for municipal elections, to have engagement sessions on what this ballot initiative is going to say and what it's going to mean. So there's a way to do that after we take the formal step. And then on the council size, I think we haven't heard really anybody from public say that should go on the ballot. I don't think. If you did, I apologize. Okay, 1, sorry. And I think all of us were sort of talking about the council size being something that we just do at the table. All of this would be implemented in 2026. So I think there's a way to do what Councilmember Fort suggested. Go ahead and get this going. And what Councilmember Harrison said is once we know what's going to be on the ballot, do a round of engagement and education.
That's what the task force had recommended, by the way, that we do voter education and that be part of our community engagement efforts. So that has already started under Taisha. At the last election, there were sessions held and the community was engaged. So that's part of what they're doing. So, Councilmember Black.
There is a beauty to speaking after so many people have gone, because a lot of the things that were said, I think, are reflected and mirrored in my thoughts as well. Specifically with in public engagement or the public hearing aspect, what I was hearing a lot of questions about from the community on wanting to have more opportunities of engagement was specifically around the addition of 3 more council member seats. What I heard around the election and the 4-year terms, I feel like Councilmember Fort, like I'm just gonna tell people how I feel. Having been here for this last year and a half, I definitely support 4-year terms. Somebody came up and mentioned, they were like, if you are doing your job well, then running for re-election is not hard. That's not true. I really hate to say it, but it's like it's a job. It's a job to be like governing and running for office at the same time and doing that every year, basically, when you're in office. It's possible. It's happened. We've had plenty of people over the time of the 70+ years that we've been doing this with elections and stuff, that people have done that. They've done it every 2 years, but it's a hard aspect when you're talking about governance and you're talking about pushing agendas when you're immediately switching over to like now we are running for office, and your whole framework and your whole thinking has to change almost immediately on what you're doing and how you're showing up for the constituents and what the work that you're supposed to be doing as a city councilor. So part of me, I'm nervous to say that, like, I think it should show up on a bond referendum. I do think, based on the history and some of the public trust issues that we faced during the last election, that to circumvent that, it needs to be on a ballot. I don't know if it'll pass, and that makes me sad because I think it's really important. Having been in this seat now, as like the youngest person, the person who raised the less money out of everybody here, I would really like to see 4-year terms for other people who are just like me, first-time candidates, people of color, young women who are coming to this space and don't necessarily have the same connections or the same background to be able to be a part of the space in other ways. I think it's a good move. But I do support it being on the ballot because I think public trust is more important and public participation is more important than what I feel personally. As far as the 3 additional council member seats, I think district seats are important, and I only feel that way maybe because I'm a district councilor, but also being a district councilor, I can say that I have spent probably the bulk of my majority of time on council talking about issues outside of the district, especially with like the rezoning cases. All the rezoning cases, none of them are in District A. Most of them are in other districts. I go to public hearings and public meetings. I go meet people at Hardin Road. That's not in my district. Everything that has been like the most pivotal, the most engaging moment of what I'm doing on city council that has the most turnout has been other places. And everybody on this council makes decisions for everybody across the city. So I think what I'm hearing when I hear people say they want more district seats is just more of a direct contact to somebody that they can direct, like if they are having, say, like a sewage backup in their house and now they need a direct city councilor to reach out to about something like that, reaching out to the city and getting like solutions. I had to do that. I think that is where people want to have like a more direct connection to their district councilor in smaller districts. But every person on here makes decisions for everybody. So I think there should be some more engagement around that because that's specifically the one that I heard people want to engage on more, like what we're doing with district seats, and especially because it connects to, this gerrymandering that we have in North Carolina that's very real. So I think it should be as transparent and as open the process as anything in government. If we do add district seats, I do think that specifically should be a decision that is held across the table, though, and then have a consultant come in and like look at how we are drawing these district lines and what they are, and then if we are picking who should go what, where, I think that process should also be public. I don't know how we would do that, but just like if we're picking hats out of a name, like I think that needs to be something that like the public can come and view, so there's no accusations of malfeasance. And those are my thoughts.
Councilmember Jones.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm a little bit under the weather, but I do agree a lot with a lot of things that have been said, specifically Councilor Black prior to this. Coming into this role, the level of information you are learning takes way longer than 2 years. Sitting in this role, we have a staff of over 5,000 people, learning the roles and being able to have an educated opinion on what's happening in the city is not something that you can just do and then turn around and make decisions on without committing to learning about it. And that takes much longer than 2 years. So I challenge to look beyond the what I sometimes call pageantry of elections that are, oh yes, I love you, I like you, and more to the governance aspect of it, of how we are actually impacting your lives, because that's really difficult. And changing out every 2 years when if we didn't do staggered, I mean, we've seen it before, it's this major swing, and a lot of the people who are here a lot, and I really appreciate it, it's because it's not working. It's because we're seeing that and you're frustrated. And I think if we do the same thing over and over again, then it's kind of crazy. So I do think changes need to happen. I did also hear, going back to the off-year, off-month elections, and I'm just going to use my district as a specific example. My district in 2019 had 13,000 people turn out. In 2022, we had 33,000 people turn out. If we go back to where we were in 2019, then we are disenfranchising 20,000 people. And that's what we want to do. We want to make it easier for people to vote. We want to make it easier for people to come and say, yes, this is my opinion. There's an argument that says, oh, well, people in the odd year elections were more in tune with local politics. But that's where we as a city, we as a council are trying to do a better job of engaging and going out there and teaching. I do, a lot of us, but I know that for me, I've done 15 or 16 monthly community engagement where we talk about this every single month. And I ask these things and I say, what do you guys think? And I tell them, this is why I support 4 years, or this is why I support 3 extra districts, because it helps me not have to represent almost 100,000 people, because that's impossible. It's impossible for me to do that and really listen to every single person's opinion and help advocate that for this at the table. So I think it's a lot harder than some of the comments made it seem. And I just want to make sure that all of that's out there. So that's just my thoughts on the matter. I will be in support of 4-year staggered, and I'm also in support of a referendum for that, because I do think that ultimately it does need to go to the voters, to the same points that Councilor Black brought up. I think the previous way of making it behind what felt like behind closed doors sets it up to where that's what we need to do, make sure that the voters have a say in it. And I do support 3 extra districts for that reason. So districts, referendum, and 4-year staggered for me. Thank you.
Okay, I also agree with the putting this on a referendum and going with the primary, nonpartisan primary. And one thing I am very concerned about, though, is adding districts. And I'd like to ask staff to do some research on this. I remember reading something fairly recently from the Upjohn Institute. It shows that when cities or towns move to more district versus at large, the amount of housing permits goes down considerably. I think it might have been something like 21%, if I'm trying to remember this. But I would like for staff to do some research so we can better understand what the impacts are, because we are at a time when we need more housing. That's one of our top issues. Housing attainability, housing choice, housing affordability. It's something we talk about all the time. And a lot of that is supply and demand oriented. So if staff could do some research on that, come back with, I don't know, whatever research has been done, I think that could be helpful in us making a decision. So,
Okay. So, so I think for the next meeting on April 16th, it sounds like you all want to consider the ordinance on the 4-year staggered terms with the no.
With a
Right,
referendum.
right. So it will be an ordinance that will be effective only upon a referendum. So it'll be an ordinance plus the resolution for the referendum. So what I hear is that comes back on April 16th?
I thought May 21st. Am I mixing something?
Well, there seems to be consensus on that one thing. Bringing
Okay.
on the referendum vote for the nonpartisan primary.
Okay,
And-
that's fine.
Okay, so that's what she's talking about, bringing back on the 6th.
Right.
On the 16th. There's consensus on that.
And then for the addition of 3 district council members, that's where I don't hear consensus about it coming back on April 16th, but perhaps more information or more public engagement around that.
And more research. I would really I like data when I'm making decisions, especially one of this impact. So if staff could do a little more research, I'd feel better.
Okay.
Okay?
So
Right.
for clarification, are we doing more public engagement on specifically the municipal elections, additional 3 district council members, or?
I'll make a motion to have one additional meeting prior to May 21st, and perhaps staff can bring back on April 16th an option for when and how that could happen.
I'll second it if it needs to be seconded.
Could that be one of our work sessions, but have public discussion? We already have a ton of public hearings, May 7th. So, we've got lots of public hearings on May 7th. We have,
Can it be like an evening meeting, not necessarily associated with our regular council days? Like,
we have budget, we have additional budget meetings scheduled in May as well.
Thought it was great.
There's quite a few. What I was asking, could we do it during a work session? Or will that interfere with something? But it's a work session, but people can come and talk to us.
I want to
More
make it
like a committee
accessible,
meeting.
so if it's at 4 PM, that's probably too early. I think ultimately it'd be best probably in the evening, like 6 or 7, or on the weekend, if we want to.
Can we just have staff come back?
On April 16th?
Or just even look at some options and bring
I'm fine
something
with
back
that.
to us?
I think there's actually some confusion. I think Councilmember Harrison is asking staff to go into the community and hold a listening session on the district seats, not us at the council table.
Okay.
And so the motion, I think, was for staff on April 16th to bring us options on how, when, and where staff can do a listening session in the community. We don't have to be there, unless we want to be there. But I'm saying it's not like it's going to happen in this room. I think the point was to take it out.
Point of clarification, so during these,
Correct. Yes.
during these listening sessions, will the public be able to offer feedback?
It's to listen to the public.
And then
Yes.
are we going to get the feedback from the meeting or?
Yes, I would hope so.
Okay.
That's a motion. Was
Yeah.
it seconded? Seconded by Councilmember Black. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now on to rezoning cases. Next, we have Z 7222, 423 South Blunt Street.
Madam? This is the one, can I?
What?
I was gonna, Madam, because this is a reopening of the hearing, and I know earlier today, we received the information from the Historic Commission that they do not have a recommendation yet for the overlay district. So I don't know, I mean, definitely we can hear from the applicant or those in against this case, but I don't know if there's anything that's changed, because I know other council members in conversations have asked to hear the information from the Historic Commission before making a decision on this case.
Has anyone talked to the applicant on this?
I did have a conversation with Mac Paul. Is he here?
Oh,
Molly's here. So Molly's that. So the conversation Mac and I had was around the information of not having the recommendation yet from the commission. So about possibly holding this.
Correct. We agree. Nothing has changed since the last time I was here at this podium requesting deferral, waiting for the same information.
So I was wondering if we can just move the hold this until May 21st.
Well, are there people here who are?
I mean, they can still speak, those who are here, that'll be fair, but
Eugene Myrick is the only person who signed up to speak.
Mr. Myrick, would you be amenable to not speaking tonight if we hold this till the 21st? It's up, since you're here. Okay, that's fine. I guess whatever time frame you want to
Okay,
give
so
them.
we're resuming the public hearing. And the 8 minutes have all expired. So there's nothing new to report,
Yeah,
correct?
that's correct. There is nothing new to report.
I would award 1 minute.
Would you like to hear from the opposing side or in favor?
Mr. Myrick said he wanted to speak, so he'll have 1 minute.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Eugene Mark, Southeast Raleigh resident. I remain in opposition of this rezoning request. The Prince Hall District is still a historically black district, and we still need to be recognized and continue to have that protection. The Prince Hall Masonic Temple is a historic building on the National Registry, and there are actually laws to protect these historic landmarks. This rezoning case should not have gotten this far. It was rejected by the Planning Commission. It was initially rejected by the Historic Commission. It has been rejected outside of the whatever y'all doing with it now. It has been, did not receive a certificate of appropriateness. At this point in time, a 12-story hotel in the Prince Hall District does not align with anything else in that district, and we need to keep the protection of this historically black neighborhood. Thank you.
Would the applicant like to speak? It will be 1 minute.
Thank you. We don't have a lot to add. I would just remind the council that a lot of the discussion has really revolved around the future of the district as a whole. And so we certainly want to continue to view this request in that context. And so we look forward to hearing the update next time so we can better evaluate the request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Black.
So, from my understanding, stuff hasn't changed since the last time it was brought to us. Can anybody explain why that is?
We're waiting for the Historic District Commission to, they came today with an update, and they will be getting back to us. Okay. Councilmember Patton.
Yeah, to the applicant and team, I know that you're waiting, we are all anxiously awaiting the full report about the overlay district. But there, in the certificate of appropriateness feedback, there was a lot of feedback from the RHDC, the COA committee, around like design modifications that would make the project more palatable. And I think there's a lot in there that is really doable irrespective of what comes from the Prince Hall, like what comes from the ad hoc committee report that we will eventually get. I sense that there's a lot of like hedging, like hopefully they'll say something that will make us not have to change our case anymore. But I think irrespective of what they say, there are some things that could make this a better project. And so I think there were recommendations in there like bringing down the height. I believe the parcel to the north is zoned for 7 stories, and then the other surrounding parcels are zoned lower. So perhaps instead of 12, 7 is more befitting for the context, or there are design alternatives. It's not my desire to give you like a super specific list, but I would definitely encourage you to go back through some of those pieces of design feedback that they gave and consider modifying the case, irrespective of what might come from the ad hoc committee. Yeah.
My name is Sual Alawar, 14201 Winfield Circle. To refer to your comment, the 12 stories, anything over 3 stories, we're only allowed to do 10% over the 3 stories. So even if we went to 7 stories, it wouldn't work because in the COA, they're not allowed to give us more than 10% over the 3 stories. The reason I went for 12 stories is I felt that it was to scale to the neighborhood. I know some of the buildings are 7 stories, but across the street you have buildings that are like 30 stories, 20 stories, not far from there. So just wanted to mention that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So I move that this comes back to us during the day on May 21st.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Anyone in opposition? Okay. That was unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next, we have zoning Z2823, Hardin Road.
Good evening. Hannah Reckow, Planning and Development. So this is a rezoning request at 3725 Hardin Road. just under 7 acres in size, currently zoned with residential 4, requesting neighborhood mixed use 7 stories, parking limited conditional use. The request is inconsistent with the future land use map, consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the Planning Commission recommends approval 6-1. This request has also been discussed by 2 of your committees, Transportation and Transit and Growth and Natural Resources, and was voted out from both without a recommendation. So we'll situate ourselves. This is in northwest Raleigh, at the corner of Blue Ridge Road and Hardin Road. So this is sort of northwest of the interchange of 440 and Wade Avenue. The site is just north of the North Carolina Museum of Art and a little ways south of the UNC Rex Hospital campus. There's a closer aerial of the site. You can see a few houses are currently located on the site, and it's partially forested. The zoning conditions that are proposed include prohibition of some uses normally allowed in neighborhood mixed use, prohibition of drive-through and drive-in facilities, setting a maximum number of residential units and a maximum number of commercial use on the site, committing to treat or to manage stormwater flow on the site beyond the UDO requirement, so it would include the 25, 50, and 100-year storm events as well. And then a zoning condition pertaining to a traffic signal at Blue Ridge Road and Hardin Road, where the developer would perform a warrant analysis, and if it's warranted at that time, would install the light, and then if it is not warranted at that time, go back and do another analysis within 180 days of the final certificate on occupancy and develop it at that time. The final part of this condition states that if it's not warranted at either time, they would make a contribution to the city to go towards affordable housing. And then the final condition is a commitment to a contribution to the city to go towards neighborhood traffic management. So the change in entitlement, this is a residential zoning district requesting a mixed-use district, an increase in maximum building height from 3 stories to 7 stories. But then there are those 2 zoning conditions that are capping use of residential units and other commercial use. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It is inconsistent with the future land use map designation, which is office and residential mixed use. And there are a number of designations on the site on the urban form map, and the request is consistent with those. Some consistent policies, these cover mixed uses, compact development, housing entitlement, and then things pertaining to sort of urban form. And then a few inconsistent policies in addition to the future land use map inconsistency. There's 2 policies from the Rena Blue Ridge small area plan that want to see parking located behind buildings, or if not that, then buffered from the view. The Planning Commission voted 6-1 to recommend approval. The dissenting vote at the time wanted to see more substantial the case more substantially addressed the neighbor traffic concerns. Since that vote, that last zoning condition that has the contribution to the city's neighborhood traffic program was added. I think that is, oh, right. Since this is inconsistent with the future land use map, approval would be an amendment to the future land use map, and that amendment would be from the current designation of office and residential mixed use to community mixed use. And then the last note I'll make, during the discussion at Growth and Natural Resources, the topic of stormwater complaints came up. Just wanted to make a clarification that there were sort of 2 numbers bouncing around, one in the staff report, which identified all of the stormwater complaints the city has received in the adjacent neighborhood in that Meredith Woods subdivision. And then staff at GNR discussed the number of cases, which is 14, of those that are in that neighborhood and downstream from the site. So I wanted to make a clarification there. And stormwater staff is here too if there's other questions on that note. But happy to answer questions before you open the hearing.
Okay, what questions do we have for staff? Okay. Thank you. Then I will open the hearing. We'll have 8 minutes. I have 5 people signed up in support. Jamie, take it you're representing the applicant.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. I'm Jamie Schwadler with Parker Poe, 301 Fayetteville Street, here on behalf of the applicant, Toll Brothers Apartment Living. I'm joined by members of Toll as well as Kimberly Horn, who are here to present the case. But because you've heard so much about it, I'll try to limit my remarks to kind of supplementing what Hannah has done and the great work of your staff, both at planning and transportation, and all the work during the committee meetings. This request is fairly straightforward. It's to provide housing along a transit emphasis corridor in close proximity to many institutions and headquarters in the manner and style which has been endorsed and supported by the community for over 10 years. The site is at the corner of Blue Ridge Road and Hardin Road, and again, zoned R4, which would allow only 49 homes if it were built out outright. The topographic and stream constraints on the site make it difficult to build, and recognizing some of those constraints, the Blue Ridge District study looked at what the future of this corridor could be and should be. And that story started with a vision in 2012, which was to create a mixed-use development on the North Carolina Museum of Art side of Blue Ridge Road, to reconfigure street connections and accommodate an interconnected and pedestrian-friendly district as redevelopment occurs in order to attract residential opportunities for a variety of users as the Health Village grew. And from that 2012 plan, the Arena Blue Ridge Area Plan was then adopted and incorporated into your comprehensive plan, again reflecting those same ideals. And I will note that that picture was actually from this area, from this wellness district area. And you can see on the slide the rendering of 6 to 12 stories of buildings with that mix of office and potential residential use along with walkability. And so those sent signals that were then incorporated in the future land use map and urban form map, which designated this as not only a city growth center, but a future transit area and a transit emphasis corridor. In short, exactly where you want to put housing along the corridor, and to promote all of those things that we saw in the district area plan, livability, walkability, and viability for jobs. And the development community responded to that call. They responded to that call on investment because what was formerly a lot of underutilized properties and state-owned land has now become home to the industries that you see on the screen, a mix of private and public investment, including Bandwidth, Wade Park, Rollins Lab, the Rex Tower, which is 12 stories just up the street, the Department of Human Health and Resources, which is 12 stories just down the street, a Montessori school. But what you'll notice is that while that investment came along following the signals that were put forward in the adopted plans, what's lacking is kind of the livability factor, the residential community. The only residential areas around this area are the Meredith Woods community, which is 3 parcels to the east, over 3 football fields away. It's one pocket of residential kind of surrounded by the sea of institutional and office uses. And so to bring that viability to the corridor as envisioned for over 10 years in your plan, this type of investment is exactly what the city expected and the community invested in when they spent 3 years going through those plans and adopting them through countless meetings of the public engagement that was just mentioned at length here tonight. And based on that vision, we were attracted to the site to, again, bring that private investment for housing to deliver along that public corridor that's missing today. And that's what this request would entail. Following the comprehensive plan and all the ways that Hannah set out, we've also met each of those goals, but gone not 1, not 2, but not 3, but 4 steps further in terms of bringing forward a request that meets the comprehensive plan guidance as to a mix of uses that would allow residential and commercial along the corridor, 7 stories, which is in line with your comprehensive plan guidance, parking limited, which is also in line with the comprehensive plan guidance, and the Blue Ridge Corridor Alliance instruction and directive who are in support of this case. And then adding additional conditions. So the first 2 conditions you note on the screen, the prohibited uses and the cap on development, bring this case further in line with what that mix of commercial uses could look like in complementing the residential uses here, and kind of meeting those conditions and bring them in line with the comprehensive plan. But then we went 1 step further We added a treating of the stormwater to the 2, 10, 25, and 50-year, in addition to the 100-year stormwater level that exceeds what your code otherwise requires. And that was done in response to significant feedback we had from both staff and neighbors. And then we went another step. We committed to installing a traffic light at the intersection of Hardin Road and Blue Ridge, which this district has been in need of for quite some time, and it's hard to get those light commitments. We committed to that. We wrote a unique condition that commits not just at the first certificate of occupancy, but tests it 6 months after, so that we can make sure that we hit those warrants. And then we took another step forward. A third step was that if we don't meet that warrant, that if we're not able to deliver that traffic light, instead of getting the money back, which happens in every other case, that we would commit $250,000 to the Affordable Housing Fund. So we're meeting that public benefit in that third way. And then the fourth step we took beyond the comprehensive plan is that through many discussions with the neighbors and the staff, a traffic calming situation exists on the lower part of Hardin today, is not able to be resolved, but we followed staff's direction in committing $30,000 to traffic calming. So 4 steps, 4 unique conditions that you're not going to see in any other case. And the reason we took that is because this case has been pending since May of 2023. We've had all the meetings that you see on your screen, including 2 committee meetings before we got here. Those helped us shape all of the commitments that I just went through, and involved a very thorough public engagement and the conditions crafted to respond to each of those things we've heard. We've gone over that at length of our community engagement in this case and why we added all of those conditions and why you haven't seen them in other cases, because they're uniquely curtailed to what the comprehensive plan guides here, but also what community members asked us to incorporate, and we did. Where we recognize that there's not been a total agreement by all community members on the number of units, but I will point out that those 4 steps, the addition of the 100-year storm, the unique traffic calming donation, the affordable housing donation, and the traffic light commitment, were in direct relation to requests that we heard from the community. And simply put, with the constraints on the site, as you see on this screen, with our streetscape and bicycle infrastructure that's shown in yellow, with the build to zone shown in orange, the appropriate limits, approximate limits of the developable area, and the significant amount of potential TCA and stream buffers, we're constrained to a limited amount of where we can put this new housing. And following the comprehensive plan and how much density and how much mixed use is anticipated on the site, the 200-unit request from the neighbors simply wouldn't support the cost of the parking deck and the 100-year vault that we've already committed to in this case. This case is consistent with your comprehensive plan. It was voted to be recommended for approval 6-1, and it does have a number of public interest and public benefits in addition to what we've spelled out on the screen for conditions, including putting housing in close proximity within a quarter mile of major employment centers, increasing new homes along that corridor. Our tree save is approximately 15 to 18% based on that riparian buffer, and where we can't build according to the Duke Energy line. I'm happy to answer further questions or to be called up to answer questions after the neighbors have a turn to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 2 people who have signed up in opposition, Randy Benefield and Bo Thompson.
Madam Mayor and members of council, Randy Benefield. I live at 3409 Hardin Road. First off, thank you all for taking our phone calls. I really appreciate that. And a sincere thank you to the 5 of you that came out and did site visits, took your valuable time. That parcel is not just on the Blue Ridge Road redevelopment corridor. That's the western entrance to our neighborhood. We have a recognized traffic problem already on our section of Hardin Road, the residential section, to the extent that we're already in the top 35 slots for traffic calming measures by the city. We've had numerous accidents on our stretch of Hardin Road, a residential street with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. We only have sidewalks on about 1/3 of the 0.3-mile stretch of Hardin Road from Nancy Ann Drive to Myron Drive. Meredith Woods residents and employees of surrounding businesses walk in our neighborhood at all times of the day and evening, and they have to use the street when walking between Lionel and Myron Drives, which is about 2/3 of the residential stretch in question. We have many young families with young children now in our neighborhood, many of whom play close to and in the road. We are a unique street in that we are a perfect cut through for people traveling from Blue Ridge Road or traveling down, they travel down Hardin Road to avoid the traffic lights on Lake Boone Trail when they're going from Blue Ridge Road down to the Beltline or to go into the Lake Boone Trail into the city. This is what causes our problem right here. Many of these cut-through drivers do not fully stop at the stop sign at Nancy Ann, and they often exceed the speed limit, sometimes excessively. We feel this is extremely dangerous and puts our neighbors at great risk. The developers have offered to pay for a traffic signal at Blue Ridge Road and Hardin, which would make turning left onto Blue Ridge Road more feasible, but the city's traffic department engineer has stated he does not anticipate this will be warranted anytime in the near future. The developers have also proposed paying for speed cushions on Hardin Road, which from the pictures and from visiting other areas where they've installed them, completely inadequate to mitigate the problems we're having. And we don't think they'd be a good long-term solution. In addition, they would take us out of the queue for other measures that we may need. The developers have proposed 415 apartment units in this building, which would indicate 415 to 600 cars conservatively, depending on the mix of unit sizes. The developers have indicated these will be high-end apartments with no affordable housing units included. Many, if not all, of the residents of these apartments will be driving to work and for recreation every day. Many will continue down Hardin Road to the Beltline, just as other residents of Hardin Road already do. We already have a documented study showing 950 car trips a day down our section of Hardin Road. And every time another building has been added to that section of Hardin, our traffic has increased. There is no other building between Hillsborough Street and Lake Boone Trail, except the one now being built across from the Art Museum, that's anywhere near the scale of what they're proposing here. The other buildings on Hardin Road, as you see in these slides, are about 2 or 3 stories high. We have proposed downsizing the project, limiting the number of units to 200. We thought this might be the start of a discussion, as Councilmember Branch had suggested at the end of traffic and planning. But the developers have only said they won't agree to that, and they've never come back with a counterproposal. We personally spoke with approximately 140 to 150 of our neighbors about this proposal, and 140 of them have signed a petition in opposition. That's 93%. Would it be possible for us to have our neighbors that are here stand briefly to be recognized? Please stand. We respectfully ask you to deny this rezoning request.
I think if we can ask for the presentation to be swapped over. I'm Bo Thompson. I'm a resident of Nancy Ann Drive in the neighborhood. This is our request to deny the rezoning request for Z2823. This parcel is at the top of a hill, a 145-foot hill above Raleigh's House Creek, tributary of Crabtree Creek. There are existing pervasive stormwater erosion problems. My neighbors are losing vegetation, property, fencing. There is evidence of erosion in House Creek, trees down in House Creek, more trees down in House Creek, more trees down in the neighborhood, trees in our Blue Line stream directly downstream from the applicant's property. There are also significant structures at risk. There are sanitary sewer, which is city-owned, maintained, and then there's a house in the background. We're concerned about the stormwater runoff. The latest development was also at the 100-year retention pond. My neighbor in these pictures has suffered greatly after that was built up on Hardin Road, pictured here in the Blue Line stream just south of Z2823. All of the water from the top of Blue Ridge that goes into our neighborhood is an unguided stream, much of which, in fact, all of which the applicant's water would go through. There is outdated stormwater infrastructure in the neighborhood that has revealed 2 failed roads, this one on Nancy Ann, this one on Myron. Thank you for getting them fixed, although it took weeks for the roads to be replaced. There are 2 other culverts in the neighborhood affected by this stormwater. There is the city in 2018 did a study that discovered a defect in that one. It's minor. We're still looking into that. Here is the back of the pipe that we think has got an issue that is referred to by engineers as a plunge pool because of the terrain that goes down from the Blue Ridge corridor down through our neighborhood, plunging the water through. We talk about a 145-foot gradient. There's the applicants. There is effectively a dam right there at the red line as it comes into the neighborhood to try to control the already difficult water situation from the top of the hill. It is 145 feet drop in 3,798 feet. Faster running water affects the creek. Longer running water, in terms of the slow discharge out from a retention pond, affects the creek. More water affects the creek in that it is piped out through one place instead of over 7 pristine acres of virtually undeveloped, pervious land. We all know that the Beltline construction is enormous. I think we're all going to benefit from this. There's the bridge on the left going from the Art Museum over to the other side. All of this water goes into House Creek. There's not been a study as to the water and since this capital project began about how much more water is going into House Creek in our neighborhood, but I submit that it's a lot. Look at all the lanes. Look at all the impervious. Finally, this is important because there is a single point of failure going under the Beltline. All of the water from the neighborhood, in fact, all of the water from the University Club and the vet school goes under a culvert in Wade Avenue, comes into our neighborhood, and backs up to this new wall that they've just built. This is the only hole for the water to go through. It is a single point of failure, which is why we should ask your able body to deny Z2823. And I'm happy to answer questions for anyone who has them.
Thank you. So, guess we will, anybody have questions for staff, the applicant? Councilmember Branch?
Yeah, a couple questions for staff, and unfortunately, I did have to leave GNR a little early, so I didn't get to hear all of the stormwater piece. But my question is, based on the presentation that was given, is there anything that a development could do to better assist the stormwater problems they're currently having? And my understanding is, with any new development, they cannot make a situation worse than what it currently is.
Yes, hi, Wayne Miles, Stormwater Manager with Engineering Services. I do appreciate the neighbors accompanying me on a trip through the neighborhood last Thursday afternoon for a few hours. So I did walk with them from the rezoning location all the way down to almost to House Creek. And I did observe a number of the issues. There's mild to modest erosion. It's a very steep slope, which does increase the velocities of stormwater through that area. And it's a neighborhood that was built in the 60s, so there is older infrastructure. I didn't observe failing infrastructure, so it did perform. To address your question, Councilmember Branch, this one rezoning case with the conditions that they're offering of above and beyond up to a 100-year storm, I do believe that would mitigate the impacts from that neighborhood in terms of flooding. It's not going to correct existing issues that are observed there. That would be something else that would take more comprehensive stream restoration and other infrastructure projects to accomplish. None of what I saw rose to the level of being a high priority for any near-term capital improvement projects based on the objective models that we use for assessing projects and prioritizing projects across the city.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Jones?
Hey, Wayne, stay there for just a second. The point that was just brought up over there is there a study on the House Creek and what the effects are? Is there a study currently or one being planned?
There was a study a number of years ago. It's outdated. It did not at that time envision the improvements to the Beltline that are under construction. So that is something that needs to be looked at some point in time. Now, I will say the tributary that this rezoning case is on enters House Creek right very near that culvert that was in the photo the gentleman showed. So the majority of House Creek and all the major erosion problems are really upstream of that, and the majority of where the Beltline construction is going on are upstream of where that tributary enters House Creek. We are in the process of updating our watershed studies, and we prioritize where those watershed studies are done next based on a number of factors: known capital improvement project needs, priorities, equity-related issues. This one is not on a near-term priority for any watershed study updates at this point in time.
And with all of the development, especially with DHHS that's happening, you have the road separation, the grade separation project that's going on there. All this, does all of that go into House Creek as well? All of any storm water infrastructure that goes there?
It does, yes. House Creek does receive the majority of the runoff from that Beltline expansion, from the art museum, from the Meredith Woods neighborhood, does all go into House Creek. And then there's that one, I believe it's an 8-foot by 8-foot box culvert that goes under the Beltline at that location. So as the gentleman mentioned, it is one point where all of that flow goes through. It's a fairly good size culvert. We've not observed any backups of that culvert or capacity issues of that specific culvert at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Councilmember Patton?
Wayne, hope you didn't go too far. Sorry. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. I thought that at GNR, I thought the streamline is on Blue Ridge Road, and so all the things on the other side of Blue Ridge Road float in the other direction. Is that, which would be the DHHS campus?
Oh, I may have misunderstood your question. I apologize. Yes, the new DHHS building on the west side of Blue Ridge Road does flow the other direction. I'm sorry if I
okay, so it doesn't.
If I answered that question incorrectly, I misunderstood what you said.
Oh yeah, I was asking if that all of that development that's happening at the DHHS building, if that also fell into the House Creek.
I'm sorry, no, I answered incorrectly.
Oh.
It does not. It goes the other direction.
Oh, okay.
My apologies. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have some thoughts that I'd just like to put out. I have been working with neighbors and with developer for a few months. I really appreciate the amount of input that has gone into. I love the fact that developers came out and they've come out multiple times to have these discussions. And the neighbors, you guys have worked so hard and done all of the research that you guys needed to do to just come and make sure that your concerns are uplifted at this point. We've gone through talks about stormwater. We've gone to transit committee. You've shown up at both of those. And I really, really appreciate all of that, all the work that's been done there. For me, and where I stand on this, there's a lot of opposition. There's a lot of opposition to this case. I think it's documented. We've gone to different committees. We've said everything that needs to be said. I do think that, I do agree that the 415 units is a lot on here. I don't know that there is stuff that can be done outside of the 100-year storm water controls that they've already included that could mitigate that. So for me, and I just kind of want to get the temperature of everyone else, for me, this is not something that I'm ready to move forward because of the concerns that have been listed that we've been discussing for the last few months. But I really wanted to see where everybody else stood on it before deciding to make a motion.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone who's been part of these conversations because we have had multiple committee meetings. Neighbors, residents have come out. We've gone out as counselors, and then the developer team has tried to be, I think, as responsive as they can to all the concerns and requests. I really appreciate the conditions around the traffic calming measures. I think those are meaningful. I also appreciate the 100-year stormwater control device. I do think that's important. My understanding from the applicant team is they are willing to look perhaps still at the number of units and or affordable housing on site. So personally, I'd like to give them the chance to do that if they want to speak to that. My suggestion would be maybe that we hold this for one more opportunity to see if we can get a little bit, better picture here.
Councilmember Branch.
Yeah, definitely. I want to speak to the part around transit, and it goes back to the housing part as well. And thank you all for coming out and the community for your work and sharing. And I know the applicant was willing to do some things, but there's some legalese that impact some of the traffic calming. My question is, and it goes to Councilmember Harrison's comment, is around the unit count. Is there any opportunity to address that unit count? Because, the resident said, I know they said 200. I know during the transit committee meeting, that was a big question mark. So I want to know where we are now, because that's been 2 months roughly since we've had that conversation.
Looking at me, so I'm assuming that question's for me. So since the transit committee, we had gotten, there was some back and forth with the neighbors. We understood that their firm position was 200, kind of no more, this is where we are. But that there were still some concerns about stormwater and other things that we were pursuing, mainly the traffic, because the traffic, to their credit, has been a pre-existing condition for them and something they've talked about in every meeting. And we knew that the traffic on the lower portion of Hardin was the issue. We really focused our efforts on trying to resolve that, because we thought and I think they expressed that the 200 unit count, and while Randy did show those pictures of the scale, was really more of a function of this concern of traffic and how many more cars 415 units would put on the road. So trying to really get to the root of it with the traffic calming and understand if that's not something that they support. So that's really where we focus our energy. Couldn't add any unit or any conditions between now and then. But I think if the majority of council is not ready to move forward, we can talk about, I'm not ready with a number right now, but we can definitely talk about reducing the units down or exploring other ideas. They had kind of thrown out some ideas, and we really were trying to respond to the one that was the largest drumbeat, which was the traffic calming throughout. And we're proud to add that $30,000 contribution and appreciate the recognition for that, because it is innovative and it took staff, a lot of staff's time to kind of help us get there. But we're happy to talk more internally, talk again with the neighbors, and talk with you all if given some more time.
Councilmember Fort, then Councilmember Black.
Thank you to the residents for the invitation to come out and have an opportunity to tour the area with you. I think I'm with the other council members, want to hold it and give you an opportunity to have more conversations with the neighbors. As you can see, you've got a number here who are in opposition, so I'm not sure if you can get there, but certainly think giving you a little bit more time to try to work with them to see if you can resolve the issues would be important.
Yeah, we're happy to do that. As we expressed to them, 200 won't cover the cost of the 100-year vault and the structured parking deck. So we talked about that on site, but we're happy to try to find some sort of compromise.
Councilmember Black.
So there's kind of a beauty to being able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And I think this is an example of that. Really what I heard from when I did the site visit, when I've talked to the developers, is that there are like two issues that are running tandem to each other, and then there also is some overlap. And I commend the developers on really like honing in on the aspects as it relates to traffic and the need for traffic calming, because that is something that like has been and will continue to be impacted by like the development that we're seeing here, and just like the increased traffic we see across the city, and that area being a cut through. The stormwater concerns, I think, are something that were, present by itself and, are, increasing or worsening from the perspective of the people who live in the community there over time. And I don't know if that is a direct impact on the development or like the development will have a direct impact on that. I think those things are kind of present in and of themselves, but I do think it warrants more conversation with some of the things that we've heard around holding it to see if you can get to a lower number to make like everybody who is like a part of this decision more comfortable. So I would be in favor of holding it, but I do see some of the stormwater issues as an issue that is like an issue that runs parallel to the development itself. So I kind of am hoping that like we can extract some of those conversations and just kind of focus in on like getting to that happy medium of like a number that may work for the residents to feel more comfortable with the case. And then also like maybe like keeping this area in mind if we do move forward with some sort of development here. As Stormwater has put, like this isn't an area that is up for looking at the impacts of stormwater, even though they are right next to an area that is really developing and is like what do they call it, a fail-safe for flooding. I do think they have some serious concerns. I was able to tour the site, and there are some serious concerns around stormwater, and I do think that could possibly worsen over time, but I don't think that is directly aligned with the development itself. But I do think there are some overlaps. So I'm hoping that like with holding it, possibly we can get to like a happy number for everybody.
Understood.
I have one comment, and it relates to traffic concerns. And I understand what you're talking about. This was just really interesting to me, and I'm going to try and share this with you, maybe to look at things in a different way. You're going to have a lot of vehicles coming there because DHHS is coming there, whatnot. I remember these same conversations when 2 apartment buildings were constructed on Oberlin Road. There was concerns about cut-through. There were concerns about traffic. And I remember asking one of our employees if a TIA had been done a year later. And he said yes. And I said, well, what did it show? And he said there was no increase in peak traffic during peak hours. And I kind of looked at him in disbelief. And he said, the reason why is because people are walking places. They're walking to work. They're walking to get their cup of coffee. They're walking to grab dinner. They're not getting in a car and going to a park. They're walking over to the park that exists there. And some of my fear with things like this is this could provide housing for people who might be working at DHHS or working at UNC. It might actually be a benefit. And I know it's hard for people to believe. I didn't believe it until this happened in my very own neighborhood. We probably have 1,000 new residents in my neighborhood. We have not seen an increase in peak traffic. What we have seen is people walking to yoga class, people walking their dogs. I've never seen so many dogs in my life. They're walking to different shops, whatnot. It's created, I think, a more connected community and a more appreciative community because we now have these benefits we never had before. So I'm just throwing that out there as something to think about. And if any of you want to email me or talk to me, I'm happy to do that. Okay.
So just to sum up what I'm hearing and where I think we should go, I do think we should hold this because it sounds like you're interested in having more conversations to see if there's a compromise that can be met, which I completely appreciate. Appreciate all the work that you have done on this, the conditions. You have been very responsive. Sometimes, especially with our neighbors, it's not enough, and that's where we have to come in, and that's where we are right now. So I want to hold this until, I think, May 21st, Councilor Patton was the date. And as we talk about growth, I mean, I think it's a big thing across the city, but specifically in this area, there's so much, and you're not responsible for solving every issue. That's not what I'm putting on you, but as a council, as we look at it, I mean, not to go too far ahead, but we have the whole PNC development that's right around here. You've got DHHS. You have all of this stuff happening in this area, and I constantly have to remind myself that I am not the counselor for the future residents. I'm the counselor for the residents that are here now, and I am trying to make sure that quality of life is balanced with growth. And so I need to make sure that those work, because I can't just grow and think of the future when I have residents who are bringing concerns to our door and showing us how their quality of life, if they feel suffering. So I have to be able to balance that. We as a council have to. So I would just challenge you to dig deep and have those conversations with the residents. And residents, I do challenge you to be open. Be open to that as well, because we are growing. We are a growing city that I do want to welcome people and bring more. But I do also hear your concern of, whoa, that's too much. And especially with these traffic warrants, if the light doesn't warrant, if you have 415 units and they're saying it's not going to warrant, it's probably not. It's probably not going to warrant even after 6 months. And while I appreciate the $250,000 to the Affordable Housing Fund, I do appreciate that. What is that going to do when we have all of these things? We have more people coming to the Blue Ridge Corridor area. I don't know what the answer is. I can't tell the future, but it's something that we have to be able to balance. So thank you very much, both parties, for being open to continuing the conversation. And I would motion now to hold this open until May 21st.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
coming out tonight. Appreciate it. All right, next is rezoning Z 5723.
If it goes past your predicted time, then you're just. We're definitely not making
Should
that
I go?
the length of the meeting.
Should I
No,
wait?
just hang on.
Okay.
Bring chips. Sorry, Matthew.
That's all right.
It's been a long day. And you guys have to travel tomorrow. Hey, curl happened in my hair. I'm like, is it humid in here? Oh, why is it humid? Early.
So you can use this for my event tomorrow.
But you got feet in, so.
It's a new concept for the area.
We have it?
Did you want to see it? I've seen the posts, but I like used it to like.
It was sprayed today.
No, it was just like it was like people interested in the environment, like age 18 to 55.
When are you coming out?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Matthew Burns with Planning and Development. This is a request to rezone about 3.5 acres at the intersection of Spring Forest Road and Atlantic Avenue from commercial mixed use 3 stories with conditions and commercial mixed use 3 stories, parking limited with conditions, to commercial mixed use 3 stories with conditions. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use map, and Planning Commission recommends unanimous approval of the request. There is significant commercial development on and surrounding this site, and nearby uses include some office across Spring Forest Road. It's also close to Millbrook Magnet High School and the Millbrook Exchange Park. And it's also not, nearby businesses include gas stations, a Waffle House, a car wash, daycare, and a CVS. Here are some views of the site along Spring Forest and Atlantic. And note that since these street view images were taken, there has been a new building that has been erected right close to the intersection, which is a Dunkin' Donuts. Proposed conditions will prohibit many uses that are normally permitted in commercial mixed use, including residential land uses, and prohibit on-site parking between the closest buildings to Spring Forest and the closest buildings to Atlantic Avenue. And I'll note that the majority of this site is already zoned with conditions that prohibit residential development, and residential is currently only permitted on a small 1/4 acre portion of the site which fronts Spring Forest Road. Proposed conditions would also permit low and medium profile ground signs, limit office uses to 82,000 square feet, and limit the combined area of personal service, restaurants and bars, and retail sales to 43,000 square feet. Approval of the request would significantly increase entitlement across uses, and Bill 2 requirements would stay the same. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and consistent with the future land use map designation of community mixed use. And policies that are consistent with the requests are predominantly related to commercial development, commercial mixed use, and retail nodes. Staff did not identify any policies inconsistent with the request. Planning Commission finds that the request would increase the permitted square footage of commercial and office uses within an existing commercial node that serves nearby residents. And just to give you an image of where residential is permitted and where it's not, the parcel at 5621 Atlantic Avenue, which is this one, has split zoning. So it's got one zoning district here that prohibits residential and one zoning district to the west that still allows residential. And please let me know if I can answer any questions before you open the public hearing.
Councilwoman Black.
For the public, can you state the main difference between the current zoning versus the requested zoning?
Sure. So the current conditions on the majority of the site are dated to August 2021 and limit commercial uses, I can tell you. From what I recall, it's about 20,000 square feet. And the site was also previously rezoned in 2016 from about 15,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. And my understanding from talking with the applicant is that the owner wanted to avoid having to come and rezone just to add a small amount of entitlement, and had wanted to kind of, instead of incrementally adding, had just wanted to remove or increase the cap to a point that would be more realistic for what he envisioned for the site. But I can also defer to the applicant to answer more specific questions about that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to open the hearing. We have no one signed up in opposition, and Toby Coleman signed up to speak on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor Baldwin, members of council. Toby Coleman with Smith Anderson, 150 Fayetteville Street, here on behalf of the property owners, Lynn's Holding LLC and Lynn's Capital LLC. Here with me today, representing the ownership groups, is young Lynn right there. I guess he's recording me as well. Matthew did a really good job of explaining it. I mean, most of my slides actually talk about, you know, why does the current versus proposed zoning entitlement say that there's residential currently allowed, and explaining why in reality there's really not any possibility currently for residential. Matthew explained that there's a 1/4 acre that allows residential on the site. Most of it residential's been banned since 2016, which was when this property was originally rezoned. What happened was After the second rezoning of this property for incrementally slightly more commercial use, this property was rezoned with the properties to the north to bring in a access point. That access, there's a series of easements on that quarter acre that currently make it basically impossible to develop any residential even if you wanted to. All that just to say that in reality, there's really not any ability to do residential on the site. Now, going backwards to your question, Councilor Black, as Matthew said, the current zoning allows for 20,000 square feet of commercial use. This rezoning is really just to allow, there's a plan to build a third building, and this rezoning is to ensure that they don't have to come back for a fourth time and ask for another rezoning. And so instead of going in 3,000 and 4,000 and 5,000 square foot increments, we just went to the city, we went to city staff and said, is there a reason for this cap? And they couldn't find any reason in any of the reports or anything, any reason, you know, it wasn't based on traffic. There was nobody from the neighborhood who was really concerned about it. So we basically just went to this, worked with the city to say, what is the maximum amount we could do before triggering any traffic issues that would require a TIA? And that's where we've set that number. We've not received any, we've had a couple people show up at the neighborhood meeting, but no opposition. And as you can see, there's nobody that signed up here and nobody showed up at the Planning Commission. So I've taken up enough of my time. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Hey, Toby. So, any idea what sort of commercial stuff you're going to do here? I ask because District A is awash with CVS and Walgreens. I'm tired.
Across the street.
I bet you they'd put a competing one if.
I'm looking to see if Young, do you have any particular tenants in mind, or is this still, the tenants will come once you start building?
Do you want to come up to the microphone?
Why don't you come up here? So the new building, as Matthew said, is half occupied by a Dunkin' Donuts. I think there's another half that has not. I don't know if it's been leased yet. Could you talk about what? Okay. Yeah, so he does not know yet what the tenants would be. The plan is, I believe, to build it similar to the current two commercial buildings, which have about what, 8,000, 10,000, about. Yeah, so they're smaller retail units, so you wouldn't have like a big box store. It's more like the 2,000 to 3,000 square foot retail spaces for restaurants and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I really like the idea of bringing food, like local vendors or businesses into the area. Because if I'm remembering correctly, like outside of the Waffle House over there, there's nothing to eat. There is a smoke shop though.
There's like a Snoopy's over there.
Sheets doesn't count. It doesn't count.
I think some people might beg to differ, but I don't necessarily dispute it. There is a Mexican restaurant? Yeah, there's a Dunkin' Donuts and a Mexican restaurant in that shopping center.
Okay.
And there's Snoopy's?
And there's a Goodberry, I think, down the street.
There's a
I always pay
Goodberry's.
attention to those.
Yeah, but just like more like local stuff I think would be really cool. But other than that, no questions. I just like wanted the public to hear like what the difference is, because you have these like letters and numbers put together and nobody really knows what they mean. But
That's right. There was as far as I can tell, there was a random cap set in 2016 at 14,900 square feet. They then came back in 2021 and said, we want to go up to 20,000. Young then called me and said, can we go to 23,000? And I said, let's not do that again. Let's not play that game. Let's just figure out what the maximum is, and so that we don't have to come back. So that's what we're proposing.
thanks, Toby.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to close the hearing then. Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated April 2nd, 2024, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment by the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have rezoning Z5823. This is Rawls Drive.
Hi, good evening. Sarah Shaughnessy, Raleigh Planning and Development. So this is a request to rezone 4 parcels, about 3 acres. From most of the property is R6. There's a little sliver of R10 conditional use along the eastern edge here. The request is to rezone to R10 with conditions. It is consistent with the future land use map. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and Planning Commission was split on this, voting to recommend approval 4-3. So here's an aerial view of the site. It is located north of Pool Road, east of the Raleigh Country Club. Again, there are 4 separate properties. The northernmost property there, it looks like is a multi-family dwelling unit there. Based on what I could gather from iMaps and Google, it was 5 units. There are then 2 duplexes in the middle, and then iMaps and Google show a property, a single-family home on that southernmost portion. Posting the sign out there, it does look like the house has been demolished, so the southernmost site is currently vacant. Some additional views of the neighborhood and the street. One condition is proposed, and that prohibits the apartment building type. Not a huge change in entitlement comparing the existing and the proposed zoning. Most of that is due to the condition prohibiting the apartment building type, so really it's just continuing the townhouse development type here. Again, consistent with a comprehensive plan and the future land use map, which recommends moderate scale residential uses for this property. Consistent policies here. The one inconsistent policy being housing variety, because again of that condition limiting the apartment building type, restricting housing types that would otherwise be allowed under this proposed zoning. And then again, Planning Commission had a split vote here, finding those in favor, acknowledged that it would increase the amount of housing that could be produced on the site. Those who voted against expressed concern that the rezoning could incentivize the redevelopment of the existing affordable housing on the site. So I'm happy to answer any questions before you open the public hearing.
Any questions for staff? Councilmember Harrison, then Patton.
Yeah, could you just speak to the Planning Commission's concerns about existing affordable housing on the site? And apologies if I missed it, but
Sure.
how many units are there and how many are occupied?
I have an aerial map here, and the applicant may also be able to provide some more information on this. So there are 4 separate properties that are included in this assemblage. My view, visiting the site and then looking on iMaps and Google, there's a multifamily, looks like a 5-unit building on the northernmost property, and then there are 2 duplexes, so 4 total units in the middle. There used to be a single-family home. iMaps and Google are still showing that as a single-family home, but a site visit shows that that house has been demolished, and so the aerial views on those sources haven't been updated yet. But so there are about 9 units on the site. I believe, I'm not sure, but the applicant has stated that the 2 middle parcels may be Section 8 housing, the duplexes there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Councilmember Patton.
That was actually my question also. Just how, did you get a sense that the 5-unit multifamily, it looked occupied?
It did, just from my, windshield tour.
Okay.
Okay, I have no one signed up in opposition. 3 people signed up in support. I know Lisa couldn't make it tonight. And then we have Amy Kraut and Philip Wheeler.
Good evening, Mayor Baldwin, council members. My name is Amy Kraut. I'm an attorney at Smith Anderson, 150 Fayetteville Street in Raleigh. I'm representing the property owners in this case, Souther Purchasing Group and Felco Corporation. Nathan Becker and Phil Wheeler are also with me today to help answer any questions you may have. In talking about this site location, as Tef mentioned, it's located off Pool Road just to the west of Sunnybrook. The applicant does own all 4 of the parcels that you see here, and all of them were originally included in this rezoning request to take them to R6 and R10 to R10 CU. That being said, the purpose of this request is really to facilitate the development of 611 and 627 Rawls into fee simple townhomes that would be generally consistent with the Montage community, which the applicant also developed. Those are single-family homes and townhomes right to the east off of Diversity Way. For 619 and 623 Rawls, there is a duplex on each of those properties. I think that's what some of the questions were about. And 3 out of 4 of those units are Section 8 housing. We noted in the application and at Planning Commission that the applicant does not intend in any way to include those in the 611 and 627 development. But we included them in the rezoning just because the thought process is we didn't want to leave them in an island of their own of R6 surrounded by R10, because the properties off to Woodpecker Court are also R10 zoning. While we didn't have any questions or concerns about this from the tenants or neighbors, since submitting the application, we have heard some of the concerns, and we hear them now, that it would be a target for redevelopment, and thus the loss of affordable housing. So we've taken those concerns into account. In order to alleviate them, our intent is to amend the application after this public hearing to remove 619 and 623 from this rezoning request. And as an important note, and as you may know, these applicants are actually big supporters of affordable housing. They're currently working to provide approximately 290 units of affordable housing in Raleigh. 148 of those are actually located just across the street from this property. So they're big supporters of affordable housing. There was no intent for them to get wrapped up or into this development. So we're planning to take those out to alleviate those concerns. As staff mentioned, these properties are currently split zoned R6 and R10CU. That sliver of R10CU came from the development of that Montage single-family and townhome community to the east. So this request is to rezone completely to R10 to make it consistent with the previously developed community. We have carried out that prohibition on apartments based on the condition that was included for the Montage development. So development in R10 is really consistent with the area. As you can see, this is surrounded by several R10, and we didn't have any opposition to the neighbors. Only 3 individuals came up to our neighborhood meeting, and the only questions were related to what type of development would be there. One item that we did want to directly address, which we think led to some of the Planning Commission's concerns and those 3 no votes, was development under the frequent transit development option. The underlying reason for this request is the owners have been working really closely with city staff to redevelop this property, and they recognized that there were potential options for redevelopment under R6, but after working with them in several different manners and pursuing several different types of development options, they just didn't work. And so one of those questions was the frequent transit development option, and why the developer didn't consider that. And the short answer to that is that they did, but currently, as some of you are probably aware, there's an issue with the FTDO option for townhome developments in section 271B of the code, because it requires a lot width of 50 feet or 45 feet, depending on R6 or R10 zoning conditions. If you look at just conventional development, the lot width is 16 feet, and those 50 feet and 45 are really related to site dimensions. So under the FTDO, your lot width for any townhome has to be 50 feet or 45 feet, which would only yield 9 units on the entire 611 and site. So that's really the problem. Is they tried. It's not a feasible option for townhome developers in either of the R4, R6, or R10 district because of that discrepancy in the UDO. And staff recognizes this issue, but would have required us to comply with that lot width regulation. Overall, as the staff report notes, this request is consistent with the comp plan and future land use map. It would also make the property consistent with the properties immediately to the east, west, and south, which are already R10 and R10CU. And overall, this request will facilitate the development of additional housing to be built in a transit-supportive area of the city, which will allow more people to live in a part of the city with convenient access to jobs, education, and recreational amenities. With that, we are open to any questions that you might have.
Okay. Councilmember Jones?
Absolutely.
Hi. I want to touch, I have two things. One, if we can talk about tree conservation, because I know that we discussed it the other day when we were talking. With this, are you looking at this as the total acreage, so there would be tree conservation in it, or are you looking at them as two separate parcels?
So they would likely be considered two separate parcels, but we would note that under R6 zoning to R10 zoning, there would be no change in the tree save area required. And any way it was submitted, we'd comply with the UDO requirements.
And can you remind me what that is?
Over 2 acres is for R10, a 10% tree save area.
Okay, so you would be committing to doing that 10%?
Only if it's developed as one property. But it is 2 separate parcels right now for 611 and 627.
Right. And then my second question is for staff, and I was just wondering if you could speak to the FTDO that she was just mentioning and help me understand that a little bit better.
Sure. So what Amy said is correct. The code currently, the requirement for the lot width is incompatible with the applicant's stated desire to develop fee simple townhomes, so where you own the structure and the land. You could still develop townhomes for rent or condominium style townhomes, but staff is aware of that issue.
And is there anything we can do about it, or are we? What's
Looking
the
to the city attorney's office.
Yeah, good evening, Pat Young with Planning and Development. That's certainly on the list of options that you all can consider as you continue to evaluate the missing middle provisions. But it is a missing middle provision, so it's under the same considerations that have been provided to you all previously by the attorney's office.
Councilmember Branch?
So I definitely want to thank you for this and listening in the conversation about those 2 parcels and pulling them out. I know our schedules are cramped the next 2 meetings, but there's no opposition to this one. They're preserving affordable housing by pulling those 2 parcels out of the case. So I'm hoping we can bring this back on the 16th in the afternoon. Because, I mean, there's no opposition, and the biggest issue that the Planning Commission had was the impact to naturally occurring affordable housing, and they're pulling those 2 parcels out of the case.
Could we kind of take a temperature check here and see
what I'm
if
doing.
everybody's?
Can I just ask a question of the applicant real quick? I'm sorry, I'm sure you said this. I'm just going to blame it on a long day. You're pulling out the 2 small parcels in the center, which are currently designated affordable housing. The parcel to the north, we were told, is a small multifamily building. Does it have residents in it?
There are residents in that.
Okay. And what would happen to them?
Yeah, so the applicant has been working closely with them. They are aware, because this project has been in the works since at least 2022. So they're aware of that this rezoning request is coming and that the development is coming, and the applicant is working very closely with them, giving them timelines, and if they need any assistance with finding other housing, they will. But it's not currently any type of Section 8 housing for those 5 units.
Got it. Do you happen to know the current rent or average rent of the?
I don't know the average rent off the top of my head, but we can bring that to you at the next meeting.
Okay. And were there any discussions about using zoning conditions to provide like a longer runway for those folks? We've seen some other conditions on other cases that provide like relocation assistance or a longer notice period than otherwise required by law?
I think because they've been aware of the development that was going to take place for at least the past year and a half or so, we haven't had any of those discussions yet, but I can go back to the applicant and talk about that.
Okay, any other feedback? All right,
So I move to bring this back April 16th.
Second.
We don't
Yeah.
have afternoon.
yeah, it's all afternoon.
Second.
How many zoning cases do we already have?
April 16th, we have 5 rezonings, 2 annexations, and then several other public hearings on other topics.
I would just add, though, this will take 2 minutes on the 16th.
We
to
keep
ap-
saying that.
To approve. but-
Yeah, we've said that a few
All
times.
right, I'm just saying, I just feel like it's almost like deferred, I don't know, we're just punting, we're kicking the can if we push it to May, but we know that they'd be ready on the 16th and no one signed up in opposition. That's just my opinion.
And one thing to think about too is, one, we don't know what the planning commission is going to come with us on the 16th to put on the 21st or even the first meeting in June. So by keep stacking things early on this 21st, only thing we're doing is keeping perpetuating the same situation. So I figured let's go ahead and meet the bull by the horn and take this one.
Councilmember Black.
Hi, applicant. So, sorry, it's been a long day. So that since you're looking at the site as 2 different parcels and the standards for splitting the site up when it's like less than 2 acres is different when it comes to tree conservation, would you be interested, or would the applicant, the person, like not you, be interested in tree conservation?
I think at this point we can talk about it, but I do think the intent is to just comply with whatever the UDO requires. But if you put us on the April 16th agenda, which we would very much appreciate, we can have those conversations by the deadline to do anything that we would be able to do.
Cool, thanks. I just wanted to put that in there.
Thank you.
Okay, you'd like to make a motion? Who seconded it? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Councilmember Patton opposed. Okay, rezoning Z5423. Again, no one has signed up in opposition.
Hello again. So this is a city-initiated request to rezone about 2/3 of an acre on Summit Avenue. The request here is a minor change to remove the frontage. The current zoning is RX4 with an urban limited frontage. The proposed zoning is RX4 without the frontage. This comes out of a request. So the city put this out for bid for an affordable housing development and got one response, and that request was for a tiny home, a cottage court development, which the frontage type prohibits. That housing type is prohibited under the frontage. So this request would open up that possibility for additional housing types, and that's the city's motivation behind this request. So it is consistent with a comprehensive plan in the future land use map. Planning Commission recommends approval 6-1, so that Commissioner Bennett did vote against this.
I'm prepared to make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Okay, I will, let's see, Ken Bowers had signed up to speak. I guess you are happy with us closing the hearing? Yes, sir, thank you. Open and close the hearing. Please make the motion.
I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated April 2nd, 2024, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action.
Second.
That was very enthusiastic. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, there we go. And then the final one is the text change, TC 823, the Appearance Commission name change. No one has signed up in support or opposition. I am willing to make the motion.
Second.
I'm the liaison, so let me second my own.
Okay.
Look, I
Then-
rescind it. I
then
rescind it.
I'm going to open and close the hearing. Would you like to make the motion?
Yes, let me read this real quick. Yeah, okay, all right. I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated April 2nd, 2024, containing the general materials, and to approve the zoning text amendment.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, that was unanimous as well. Thank you, everyone. We are now adjourned.
La esperanza ha sido parte de mi recuperación porque a veces era lo único que tenía. Fue solamente cuando entré en recuperación que quizás recordé mis pasiones, pero creo que lo más importante es en la manera de que la vida puede comenzar nuevamente.
Me pregunto si sabes que quiero lo mejor para ti, que sé por lo que estás pasando. Yo sé que son tiempos difíciles, pero tú sigues estando presente. Me pregunto si sabes que podemos conseguir ayuda, que no tenemos que pasar por esto solos. Veamos qué tan lejos podemos llegar. Con amor, tu mente.
Hi, welcome to Wake TV. I'm your host, Taylor Shaw. Spring is in the air and on your cars. We have a lot in store this episode, so stay tuned. Construction is almost complete at Beach Bluff County Park, set to open later this year. Let's catch up with a group of 4-H students as they plant longleaf pines on the property.
Well, you are here today at Beach Bluff County Park. It's the future Beach Bluff because we currently are not open to the public, but we are open to some volunteers today that are coming out to this 300-acre facility to plant some longleaf pines. The county actually did a study, a land cover analysis and tree canopy assessment, and they found out that there's areas of need, of course, with all development that's happening in the area, that a lot of the tree canopy is gone. And so this is an initiative with the Fuquay Verena 4-H group to come out and actually plant these trees to help bring back that tree canopy.
The way we work with 4-H is, especially with teens, we love to develop their leadership skills. And so what they do, the projects they choose, the directions that they go down are really their own kind of vision, their own passions coming to life. So we do work in a way that is very youth-led. And so we just help them kind of collect the resources and the skills necessary to implement something like this.
I just really care about nature, and I kind of, I just wanted to do a good deed and plant some trees, I'm looking forward to just planting the trees, making new homes for, like new habitats for the animals that live here. Just a little bit ago, we found some like paw prints in the sand.
I will recognize the 4-H GIS Club. They really focused on this canopy map that was created and saw some gaps where the trees needed to be planted. So once again, Thomas Ray and his club did a great job of just pulling this all together and then sharing it with the whole rest of the 4-H club world so that we could all kind of participate. And that's how we love to do things. So kudos to them and kudos to our 4-H team and clubs for showing up to support.
We're going to try to plant at least an acre today. There's a little over 300 of the longleaf pine seedlings, and then there's about 300 of the native grasses. So in total, a little over 600 plants that we'll be planting today. Longleafs are a tree that used to cover a lot of North Carolina, and so this is an initiative not just for the tree canopy, but to bring back our longleaf pines as well.
I work elections because it is a privilege and an honor to be a part of the process that helps shape our country and our future for our children.
I work elections because it makes me feel important to be involved in such a wonderful process in the United States.
I work for the Board of Elections because I love to give back to the community and help others.
I love elections because of the community aspect, seeing all your friends and neighbors.
I work elections because I want to encourage other people like me who came from another country to serve this amazing country.
To learn more about how you can work elections, visit wake.gov/elections/get-involved. Did you know 1 in 30 baby boomers has hepatitis C? People born between 1945 and 1965 are 5 times more likely